Who the fuck is this guy? I know, I'm sure I'm getting comments of, no one can hear you. As soon as I put on the headphones, that became clear. I feel like I look like I'm about to do something illegal on a boat. Like somebody's about to come to a boat. How many more buttons down? How much chest hair do we need to see today? Yeah, there's something very disturbing about this. All right, we're on my channel, Jimmy Snow. I know there are going to be people who are like, did Jimmy just use a line intro, an intro from the line on his personal channel? And the answer is yes. And it's funny because shortly before going live, I've made myself a double decaf, like that matters. It's a double, but it's decaf vanilla latte to get through the show. It was funny because a little bit before I went live, I was like, am I allowed to use the line assets? And then I remembered I'm in charge of that. So much like Donald Trump thinks it works for declassifying documents, I can just think something and then it becomes true. That as far as for permissions on the line go, I declassified because I wanna, because it's because I wanna. Whatever, it doesn't matter. For those of you who don't know, if for some reason you don't know this, it'd be kind of weird if you've been following me, but maybe you're showing up here for the first time ever because you want to hear the tea on the Donald Trump stuff. We're definitely going to go into that, despite the fact that I hate myself for using the phrase the tea when I am so not interested in ever being mistaken for a tea channel ever again, which is a big part of why it's taking so long for me to decide what part of my old catalog I want to go back up. But I'm Jimmy Snow. I'm formerly known as Mr. Atheist, Dear Mr. Atheist. And this is my channel, Jimmy Snow. However, I'm the executive producer of a series now of channels, mostly right now, the one called The Line, but it's becoming more channels daily. The Line X has launched. The new shows will be launching on the Line X here before long. And we do call-in shows over there. Now, whether or not I do a call-in show here today, I don't know if I will open up lines and allow people to start calling. I haven't decided that yet. Part of me thinks that at some point it will, but I'll tell you this much. I'm here because Donald Trump has been indicted, and this time on something that's, I don't want to say this time it's actually serious, because it's not as though that there were details of the Stormy Daniels case that weren't serious. But certainly nothing over there that looked all that likely to result in anything incredible. I will say, yes, I love the transform wife. She's my favorite. But yeah, just a wise person. I'm reading chat a little too much already. This is the stuff where, God damn it. It actually looks like Donald Trump might go to jail. The reason I just said, God damn it, is I have this computer here that I sort of like, I actually remote into the production computer, and it's on this, it's my old artistry computer. It's got a hinge and stuff, so you can, I was a photographer. I can't illustrate for shit. Anyway, its power button is in just the right spot where I hit it with my mouse because I have it down in this bottom position. I hit it with my mouse and I turned it off as I'm trying to set things up. Okay, here's the deal I'm going to make everybody if you're over here on this channel. In September, the Sometime Show will launch, and I can say that the Sometime Show will be a structured show. It'll be, I think, very good. The relaunch of the Sometime Show, that's happening in September. It's going to be about news. It's going to be about current events, and we'll be featuring a call-in portion on every episode. At that time, Jimmy Snow already is sort of that, but Jimmy Snow will officially become a part of The Line. So it will be The Line. I'm not going to say what the remaining name of but it'll sort of be a subset of a new channel that probably will still bear my name on it, because I'm not just going to let go of my name being on all of this, but it'll be Jimmy Snow - The Line. Maybe it'll just say The Line. Who knows? Anyway, it'll become officially an extension of The Line, and it already unofficially is. Also, I'll be going live more over here, and these live shows are going to just be honestly garbage, in my opinion, but you might like them. They are not going to be, they are not intended. Look at how long we've already been going, and I've barely said fucking anything so far because I'm not even done setting up. But over here, if you want to come hang out with the community and chill while I do fucking whatever. I might just leave sometimes, but leave, just go to the bathroom for a while. It's like, all right, whoever's still here when I get back. We might do call-in portions. I might just put on a VR headset at certain points. There is no plan for structure on the live shows over here as we approach September. But there are going to be lots of me going live to experiment with certain things, to get better with certain things. I imagine as we get closer to September, you'll also won't see me use this set as much, which I use for other shows on the line. You'll probably start seeing me on the Sometime Show set, because that's where a lot of those experiments need to happen. Yeah, so I don't know. That's the shit that's going on. If you like it, we're just hanging out. It's not that important. It's not that don't do me any favors. We get those people a lot who are like, hey, I wasn't really as interested, but I left it on in the background. If you're not having fun, just go. I don't mean that in a mean way. Just go. Just hang out when you like being here, and if you don't, then don't. You don't have to do any favors. For real. It's not that serious. It's not that important. Who the fuck cares? I feel such freedom on this channel that I didn't have before, back when it was at its peak, when I was uploading nearly daily atheist content, all of that kind of stuff. There was truly a misery and an illness happening during that period of time. There was a lot of stuff that was on the personal life end that I won't go into. There was a lot of stuff on the YouTube end that ended up just being ridiculous and stupid. And a lot of toxic, terrible people convincing me of problems that weren't real. And so there's a lot of stuff is going to change. In fact, I feel like if we reset my subscribers and went, hey, everybody who's ever watched Jimmy Snow before, here's what its content's going to be like. Do you still want to be subscribed? If YouTube would like manually intercept and say like, do you still want your subscription on this channel? Because this is the direction it's taking, and it's not what you originally signed up for. I think maybe 20%, maybe. I'd probably dip under 100,000 subscribers again. I don't even know what we're at over here. I think we're still above 350. I do so little maintaining of the channel that, much like a lot of old atheist channels that are past their development prime, I think we lose about 1,000 subscribers a month right now on average. Though there was a huge spike back in November because I started doing shorts. Let's talk about the Donald Trump stuff. Get that out of the way. And then we'll just do whatever the fuck we want. Because who can stop us? Well, okay, that's not true. People could stop us. Not people. YouTube could stop us. And so there's a limit to whatever we might want. Like, I can't just start going like, in an ideal world, the following people would just die. Like, you couldn't do that over here, because that's still crossing some lines. But, I don't even really feel that way. Yeah, I'll read super chats within reason. Might do it as they come in. But yeah, I'm just trying to really communicate to everybody that if you're coming here to this channel right now in September, I think this channel is going to fucking, I'm so excited to be doing the Sometime Show again. I miss it so fucking much. Truly, like, I have been loving stuff that we've been doing on the line, and I've been loving the development of the line. And more than that, it's really fucking, you guys want to hear what a fucking full of myself sack of shit I am? The thing I like the most about the line is, as a fan of the line, I like seeing, I am the creator, owner, executive producer of the line, with several partnerships. So we pay our hosts and things, but I like the line as a fan of the line more than I like it as a producer. I really do. I'm like, because it should exist. The line, what the line is, other people have attempted it and things, but the specific variety of content and the development plan for the content and the communities that are building, we're about to launch a community Reddit at the very least, might do a community Discord as well, but also the events these are turning into, the conversations they're turning into, the network we're turning into, the ways in which we're modeling conversation. I think nobody does better than the line, especially the Transatlantic Call-In Show, where they literally, on Thursdays we do the show called the Transatlantic Call-In Show, and it's always hosted by trans people, and it's most often produced by trans people. I am, when Arden can't, I am the producer on, I'll produce that one, but it's usually an all trans setup, and they take calls from anybody on trans issues. And the way they model, the way they model conversations, even with terribly bigoted people, is phenomenal. I feel like they get just the right balance of when to go from no, now this hasn't been a conversation. You're just being a bigoted asshole. So I know how to get, when you escalate, I know how to go there. I know how to, but anybody who wants to be here, honestly, it's been tremendous. All right. Like I said, we should talk about the Trump stuff first. I'm fucking 11 minutes in. This is what I mean. What a fucking garbage program this is. I lure you all in with a hilarious thumbnail, by the way. Have we all taken our moment to respect the goddamn thumbnail on this episode? Need to get... Okay, wait. Tabitha had said, hey, Jimmy, I came for Trump. Not you, kidding. And then, ew, you came for Trump. Okay, I'm just kidding. That was too far. That joke was too far. I admit it. I should have just said that's what someone said. And then Jake Nelson, you need to go back to the close cropped haircut. It was sexy as fuck, and I'm straight. Also, go fuck yourself. I don't know which one that means, but I'm probably going to shorten all of it. Y'all, I have a fucking rat tail right now. My hair does this thing I call the Tennessee V, because I happen to have been born in Tennessee. Does this thing called the Tennessee V. Terrible. But yes, it's going to get shorter again soon. I think my hair looks best shorter, but also right now, like, my beard could use some edging. Edge my beard. Yeah, anyway. So how many more things did I say? Can we all appreciate, I had Midjourney make the base of that. Oh man, that would be a fun stream to do. Maybe I'll do that soon. I'll just show you all different AI tools I use sometime. Midjourney being an image generation and then taking it into Photoshop and how I modify things in Photoshop using AI tools and different stuff. We could do that stream. We could do like an AI. Here are the things I'm using. Here's what everybody should be using. Use it, because the more ubiquitous it becomes, the faster and better it will develop before it murders all of us and takes all of our jobs in whichever order. Doesn't matter. I do have so I'm doing a little 3-drink special. Mineral water, carbonated, decaf, double, plain old water bottle and electrolytes. Boom! We in here. Wait, is this electrolytes? Yes. Yes, it is. Good. Donald Trump has been indicted by a special counsel. You'll keep hearing the name, Jack Smith. And this is related to, for those people who need a little bit of a reminder, we understand. We all get that way. This is related to the classified documents thing. Now, listen. There are people on the right who I actually think we should try to engage a little bit more. I guess I could say empathetically, because I'm discovering that truly many of these people just don't fucking know. They're just kind of stupid. No, they're just ignorant. They have this true, how do I want to put it? Isolation of, they genuinely think that this is just the same thing, that it is the same as, wait, so Donald Trump had classified documents and now he's in trouble because he had classified documents. But Joe Biden had classified documents and he's not in trouble. And Mike Pence had them and he's not in trouble. And they truly are just hearing that version of the story. Now, I understand this is a lot by their own choice. However, I have noticed when having conversations with some of these people that if you introduce them to the additional information, while they will often be rather, because nobody likes to be called out. Nobody likes to be told they're wrong. Nobody likes to be told their information is wrong. No one does, even when you are wrong by your own fault. It's something nobody likes. So in the moment, you're probably not going to get, oh, well, now I believe you and all that sort of stuff. But I have noticed it's turning into conversations that are turning into longer processes where people I'm talking to are coming back and going, hey, so I didn't know that. And I just want to go on the record as saying, I actually do think what he did was wrong. I'm not saying, and a lot of them will say they don't think it still warrants the amount of problem, or that, it's too dangerous because it's an election year and it looks like election interference and all that kind of shit. Like, that stuff's still happening. I might throw a little music on here. That's too loud. And before I do it, I need to also turn off the auto gain feature for that input so it doesn't get over me. Let's take it down. Maybe not. Maybe skip the ones that have. This is dope. I love an organ. Sounds like the Phantom of the Opera. Jimmy Live over here. What is this? I know it's blowing my own fucking mind. I don't remember the fuck I was talking about. What an unprofessional piece of shit. Okay. Jack Smith, counsel, talking to people. People, you have an opportunity done right tactically when you're having these conversations to actually reveal to people stuff they didn't know and take down some of their defenses and stuff. And that is such a powerful beginning, such a powerful look. People every day are becoming disillusioned with this fucking man baby, this child of a pumpkin. And it takes a first moment. And I really think, Jesus Christ, this song. What the fuck? I'd rather shut up and just listen, but I don't think you all want that. Well, some people will wish I would shut up and just listen. But yeah, I'm the opportunity for good conversation right now is higher than ever. Cause if you just want to go the normal way, you're a fucking idiot, you MAGA moron, you're so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Fine, do that, whatever. If that's what brings you joy on Twitter, Twitter's not the real world. Excuse me. Twitter's not the real world. This stream over here will feature burps. It's just going to happen. I'm drinking coffee and carbonated water at the same time, but it's like I have not only a flat coffee and a fucking carbonated drink. I also have cold, hot, and then room temp. Anyway, right now is such a great moment for disillusionment. If instead of getting in fights about you're a fucking idiot, you're just in the Trump cult, whatever, you can just get people to acknowledge, oh, I did not know that. I was unaware that was the kind of thing we were talking about. I did not know, for example, that he has charges of conspiracy with one of his work people, was a valet at the White House, somebody decided to keep, and that guy has also been indicted, this ex-valet assistant person, for conspiracy, for intentionally moving documents with the intent to conceal them, with the intent to keep them, lying about whether or not they had moved documents and their intents to conceal them and the like. It is ablaze. The absolute hypocrisy on the right as well, having to do with Donald Trump and his virtue signaling about classified documents and emails and information when it comes to the Hillary Clinton server. That Hillary, we will never do that in our administration. Never, never. By the way, my children, in their official capacity as representatives of the presidency, with their official presidential jobs as counsel directly to the president, they used private email fucking servers. And Donald Trump almost looked in the clear of anything like that ever happening because Donald Trump famously does not email. Donald Trump doesn't use devices for that kind of purpose. Obviously, he tweets, or now truths, with his fucking garbage application, Truth Social. That fucking, I feel like I could have designed Truth Social. And the reason why that's a dig is I don't know how to make an app. And that app fucking sucks. That app is fucking garbage. Truth Social. Truly fucking garbage. Absolute trash. I'm just going to open it. Let's see if it succeeds, because sometimes it doesn't. The other day it was like, oh my God, you have DMs now. Enjoy. Fucking top of my feed is One America News. Let's just go to Donald Trump and see what that fucker's up to. See you at Miami on Tuesday. See you at Miami. Hang on, let me get into there. And we don't like it, okay? And we don't like Donald Trump. I'm Donald Trump. I'm Donald Trump, and I'm running for president, okay? And let's be clear, okay? What they're saying is, let's be clear, I didn't enjoy doing, because that's more of an Obama phrase. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I loved that fucking, let me be clear. But Donald Trump's thing is, Believe me, that's his let me be clear. Believe me, okay? And what I'm saying is everybody's going to show up to Miami, okay? We're going to march on the office. He hasn't said this directly, but he's clearly trying to summon another mob, which is ballsy. In a way, it is kind of ballsy because he fucking failed to summon a mob to New York. It was like such a shitty show. Now, listen, this is a bigger deal. One, because he's in way more trouble. He is the special prosecutor, the special counsel, Jack Smith, reckons he has the evidence that he can prove to a jury of 12 peers. And at this point, how do you even find 12 people who don't have a bias regarding Donald Trump? That's going to be the hardest fucking thing to overcome. That Donald Trump purposefully kept not just classified information, but classified information that he knew endangered national security. And that I believe they said on 2 occasions, showed some of those sensitive documents to other people, did not secure them, when asked to return them, tried to not return them, that they can prove he conspired to not return them. Now, here's something that's icing on the cake. And there are some people who are saying there is a way in which this might not matter at all, so don't jump to it. It could be because of something unrelated. But I've now passed that on to you as I go. This doesn't sound unrelated, and I would like to hear the explanation as to why, when the indictment was officially unsealed, meaning that Trump and his lawyers, because they weren't going to get the copy of the indictment, I believe, until next Tuesday, but because they were reacting on social media and trying to drive a narrative, the special counsel will have requested, at least this is what I assume happened, what happened last time, will have requested that from the judge that the indictment be unsealed because of the public interest that is being forced by Donald Trump. It's unsealed. Everybody sees it. What's the first thing that happens? 2 of Donald Trump's lawyers quit. But that might be unrelated. That might mean nothing. That's what I've been told. It might mean nothing. It might not mean nothing, but it might mean that they already recognize that they can't participate because they are an implied party or an unnamed party or a named party in the indictment. That in Florida, it may be the case that you can't be the lawyer for somebody with whom you are basically a named co-conspirator, a co-plotter. So it might mean nothing except for that it might mean a lot. Now, interestingly, one of the people, I believe, who quit, I'd have to verify this too. So again, this is not, I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning. I'm just working through my thoughts and I'm here with people who want to come along. This is not a structured episode. This is a cause I wanna, this is cause a if I wanna, this is a what the fuck I wanna. But unless I am mistaken, one of the people who quit today was the lawyer doing the press rounds last night defending Donald Trump. In fact, I just want to look it up. Let me see if it is him. Trump lawyers quit. How many people are here? Will somebody tell me in live chat? Ooh, Jim Trusty and John Rowley. And who was the guy I saw defending him last night? I know I've seen one of these guys defending people, whoever the one with the gray hair is that, or the name? Jim Trusty. Check him first. Okay, that's the guy that I've seen a lot on TV, but not necessarily yesterday. Wait, I just put in John Rowley and it's showing me the exact same fucking person. What the fuck? Let me just check this New York Times article about the quitting. The failing New York Times. A day after he was indicted on 7 federal counts related to his handling of government documents at his home of Mar-a-Lago. for purposes of fighting the greatest witch hunt. Now moving to Florida courts, I will be represented by Todd Blanche Esquire and a firm later to be named. I want to thank Jim Trusty and John Raleigh for their work, but they were up against a very dishonest, corrupt, evil, and sick group of people, the likes of which have never been seen before. We will be announcing additional lawyers in the coming days. So clearly there's also been some sort of deal there. There's no way Donald Trump's happy with this. We know this from other stuff in the past. Wow, over 300 people are here. I'm fucking, wow. What's wrong with all of you? This is a fucking, who the fuck? Okay, anyway, I get it. It's Donald Trump's indictment stuff. You're not here to hang out with me. I don't know. Whatever. It's just surprising. I thought it was going to be like 90 people. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Yeah, Donald Trump would not have been happy with that. So clearly there's also a deal of like, do not talk shit and I won't talk shit. Because if the lawyers talk shit, you're fucked. Now, there may be a mutual blackmail going on here of like, hey, we definitely broke a bunch of laws and this indictment looks really bad. So we're going to get away from it because we could get in more trouble, but let's just keep each other's secrets. Do we know that? That's a conspiracy I just made up for the record. We don't know that happened. It just seems like every time Donald Trump does shit, it turns out later we found out he was trying to do all sorts of legalese bullshit and definitely leans on lawyers as all the revelations that have come out of the Michael Cohen stuff is revealed. Definitely leans on lawyers with sort of indirect language code to go break the law for me. Do it. Because I'm so handsome. He thinks he's handsome. Okay? And that's all that matters. It's kind of like me. I think I'm really funny. I do. I think I'm really funny even in a room full of people telling me I'm not. And so I recognize that Donald Trump believes he is a very handsome man. Even in a country. Okay, well, that's not important. By the way, a month ago, another lawyer, a third lawyer on Mr. Trump's team, Timothy Parlator. Oh, and by the way, Ty Cobb, this actually happened. It could have been a few days ago. It could have been a couple months ago. Time is that meaningless to me. Not meaningless, just fucking. The pandemic ruined my sense of time, as has, I think, how often I'm working and stuff. But anyway, Ty Cobb, his previous lawyer, defender of him through, I want to say the Ukraine thing and the impeachment, said that he's going to go to jail for this. Chris Christie, who is happy to demonize Democrats for their being overly whatever, unequal focus, and as though that sort of thing. Hillary's emails. Anyway, who's happy to shit on Democrats any chance he gets, is a former governor, but also a former lawyer, former attorney, also says this is bad. This is bad shit. Now you're getting soft defenses. You get a lot of Mike Pence going, we had no business having those documents. I shouldn't have had them. The president shouldn't have had them. And the former president shouldn't have had them. But it doesn't raise to he's got that way of speaking, but it doesn't raise to the level of a Justice Department prosecution. And I'm very worried about the blah, 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 blah. That's Mike Pence. It's funny that the people who are staunchly defending him are the people who are in his pocket and are afraid of him. Mark Meadows, for example. Mark Meadows, who, Mark Meadows. Is that the Speaker of the House? Am I mixing him up with the Kevin McCarthy? Mark Meadows is the old Chief of Staff. Kevin McCarthy is the current Chief of Staff of the current Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy out there defending Donald Trump because he's got something on him. This is the guy who after January 6th was like, President Trump bears some, if not all, responsibility for what happened here today. And we'll remember blah, 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 blah. And that's the way it is. And I really want to be Speaker of the House. And I'm going to become Speaker of the House, but most of my own party won't want me there. But I'll figure out a way. And that's the dude's out there trying to make it sound like in his statements that the indictment came from Joe Biden, as though Joe Biden could have that Joe Biden indicted Donald Trump, which is also fucking ridiculous. And it's this incredible thing where you're getting all of these people coming out basically saying, Mike Pence, remember, no one is above the law, but maybe they should be. Maybe the president is, but no one is above the law. You know, in America, no one's above the law. But I think maybe we should not arrest Donald Trump for breaking fucking national security laws, for conspiracy, for breaking U.S. espionage law. These people, these fucking people. What are some super chats saying? Hang on. Do I have this set up right now? If I send, that's an old one. If I send this one, does it just pop in? Well, this whole thing looks like shit anyway, because it should be me like this. I bet I can fix this fast. Fucking ill-prepared sack of shit. Whoever's producing this episode of Cause I Want is fucking garbage. Fire him. Fire him. All right, here we go. RBG Debunks, it said Donald Trump has been indicted and Pat Robertson shuffled off the mortal coil. This is the best Pride Month ever. The only way it could get better would be if Jimmy went and fucked himself. That's true. That is true. And I will. I so like an insulated glass mug. It's such, I don't know. There's something so pleasant to me about the separation. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares, Jimmy. Shut the fuck up. Just talk about Donald Trump. Laser Lizard had said, relaying a message from my girlfriend Aurora. Thank you for introducing me to Owen Morgan and RN Raw's channels and leading to me waking up from the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's amazing to hear. And Owen Morgan is an incredible XJW and also skeptic reference, atheist reference. He does really great work. I love that guy. Jake Nelson says, Jimmy loves an organ. Tell us something we don't know. Oh, I get, because from the music. I do love the, by the way, how's the sound? Is the music at the right level? Can you even hear it? Yes, I agree that I'm unpredictable. You don't know what I'm going to say next. Hive Size said, did you catch any of Shiny Happy People yet at Jimmy Snow? No, I haven't. Anything that requires focus is hard to get me to start. I have played the tutorial and maybe another 6 minutes of that new Star Wars Jedi Survivor game. And that game like seems built for me. That game seems like that's my type of thing. My type of game. It seems perfect. And yet I just don't have the time for things that actually require focus. I did finally install it on my Steam Deck. We'll see how well it runs to see if maybe I can play it for like half hour to an hour before bed every night. It's so funny that when I was a child, I couldn't wait to be an adult so that I could play video games as long as I wanted to, because this whole only playing for an hour before bed or something just didn't work for me. And I hated that during the short periods of time that my parents tried to enforce any rule on me and then basically stopped trying to enforce because they were more interested in catching me and making up rules in the last minute, making up rules impromptu so they could punish me. Anyway, it's a whole long, complicated thing. And now I'm like, boy, I hope I can fit in an hour of video games before bed. Ooh, 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 ooh. I don't get this thing that some people do when you ask, like, can you all hear the music just fine? And then people pretend they can't hear it at all. I know which people to trust in chat. Cara Belnuit says, what do you think the chances of him actually serving time for this are? That's a great question. And this is the question that gives me, I don't know, maybe a little bit of hope. Maybe a little bit of something, maybe a little bit of something to get me through the day, get me through the answer is it depends. Because our country is just stupid enough to elect him anyway. And then the question becomes, what can he do? Because it's unlikely that we will see any of these trials begin before next summer. And next summer is the election, what would you call it? The election season. So there's no chance that he's going to go to trial while he's president. There's some chance he'll go to trial next summer, but there's some chance too that things will get delayed because of that warrants a delay. So there's a very, very short window to convict him and send him to jail. It looks pretty bad. So the question, I guess the first question is, do I think he's probably going to be found guilty? I dare say I do. I do think he will be found guilty for it. Just what details we have so far of the evidence that it's based on, these phone calls that they have knowledge of, these videos that show the person saying that they're not moving boxes, hiding things, these conversations they know from people, it's looking real bad. So I do think he'll be found guilty. It sounds like it's played in a car stereo a couple blocks away. I'll turn it up a little. See if that helps y'all. Will he spend any time in jail? I think Joe Biden, even if Joe Biden won, would pardon him if he was convicted. And basically, or maybe not pardon, but commute his sentence. Basically say, for the sake of the country, hang on, I gotta get into, I'm serious, not a joke. For the American people and the sake of the country, we have to move forward. We can't be looking back. You know, Democrats, we move in D, Republicans move in R. That's not who we are, and we need to move forward as a country. So today I'm announcing to the American people that I'm commuting the sentence of Donald Trump. What he did was wrong, but it's not time for a political opponent to go to prison. It's time for this country to heal. I'm switching between him and Pence. Like I can hear it. None of these are perfect impressions. That's what we're going to do because it's the right thing to do. I could totally see him pardoning him. Now, let's say Donald Trump wins and is convicted and supposed to go to jail. Then a couple things could potentially happen. And the one that interests me is that he's going to try to pardon himself, right? I did nothing wrong. No one's ever deserved, no one in the history of pardons, no one has ever deserved a pardon as much as me, Donald J. Trump. And so it is with great no, and I think I'm very innocent and very handsome, okay? Just like Jimmy thinks he's very funny, I'm very handsome and very innocent, and no one in the history of our country has even come close to deserving a pardon as much as I deserve this pardon. And now I can't hear the music. Blip, blip. I could hide this. We don't have to see so much. Oh, yeah. Y'all seen that frog, that Coyote Pearson frog? He picks up this frog and it's going, ah, ah, and he talks to it. And then it throws its head back and goes, ah. It's very strange. It's a very strange, a very human sounding moan. Anyway, I don't know why that came up. Donald Trump will probably be convicted. I don't see a lot of ways he goes to jail, spends any meaningful time in jail or prison. And by the way, I could even see arguments that a person makes that don't. Okay, I have to be clear on this. I am not saying that it is right to pardon Donald Trump. However, I can see arguments that would be made that to most Americans would be a sound enough argument that even many people who despise Donald Trump would say at the end of the day, that's probably the best decision. I do think that there will be what is maybe called conventional wisdom, but sometimes conventional wisdom needs to be challenged. And I think if anybody as corrupt, as outwardly evil, malicious, as much of a scam artist, and that's the biggest compliment I'll give him. As far as scammers go, he's an artist. Anybody at his level of terrible human being should 1000% not get the conventional wisdom treatment. I don't particularly think Nixon should have been pardoned, but I get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get why they did it. And I think that we'll be able to say something similar. I don't think Donald Trump should have been pardoned, but I get it. I get why they thought they should do it. I get why people think that generally this is the thing that should have been done, because the outcome, if you don't, you have this idea of a different outcome. I'll get it. Let me just hit some more of these things. I don't know. Look, I could be wrong, but I don't see a lot of ways in which I don't see a lot of outcomes of him spending any meaningful prison time. Though I wish he would. And obviously my amazing thumbnail, incredible work. I think it's done very, very well. It's one of the best thumbnails. And in the same way that Donald Trump believes he's handsome. My thumbnail implies otherwise. Jake Nelson says, we wanted to, or we wouldn't be here. We wanted to, or we wouldn't be here. Oh, hang out? Good. How many people are here now? I need to mispronounce more words and throw in Obama. Okay, Obama. Jake Nelson said, Jimmy, you are funny. I'm totally hetero, but if anyone could sway me to bat for the other team, it would be you. You haven't seen me in person. Don't worry, I'd cure that problem. It doesn't matter what sexual orientation or gender you are. In person, I will eliminate any potential attraction. Sheridan Bernasconi says, Joe won't commute a sentence. I disagree. Trump may be given an option to not run for president and get off scot-free. I don't know. Trump already has the option to run for president and get off scot-free. It's just not come from Joe Biden. I think Ron DeSantis would probably beat Joe Biden. I don't want Ron DeSantis to beat Joe Biden, but I think he probably would. I think that the Biden administration is easy to make look bad, look worse than it is. There's a lot of actual good stuff. Like, again, I'm not a Democrat. I'm definitely not a Republican. I'm a leftist. Joe Biden is the best of a terrible situation if we're talking about the general election. And I will say I've been surprised at some of the things he's done surprisingly competently, and been happy to see some things I wouldn't have expected out of him. Okay, now that's all said. Now that we have that all out of the way, he's not hard to make look bad. He's not hard to make look old. It is much, much easier to make Joe Biden look like he's on his deathbed and senile because of the reemergence of his stutter. As far as his intellectual capability, he is not performing below the last president. He's not performing below Bush. He's probably not even below Clinton. Obama's pretty smart. Like you're not going to outperform that guy as far as Biden versus Obama. He's not intellectually underperforming compared to any reasonable standard. But as far as how it's even just that Ron DeSantis has that concept of the next generation, but the old generation likes Ron DeSantis because he tries to appeal to both. And so Ron DeSantis is relatively young compared to, and I think Ron DeSantis would beat, not because he's good. Again, terrible, arguably worse than Trump. Imagine Donald Trump with some political competence, with some knowledge of policy, and with Christian-based hatred of specific groups, as we've seen Ron DeSantis coming after queer people, even though that door was supposed to have been shut back in 2014. Arguably worse. And I do think he would beat Joe Biden. And I think that Ron DeSantis would happily, even if they remain contentious between the two of them. Let's say Donald Trump lost the primary to Ron DeSantis. I think Ron DeSantis, in trying to appeal to Trump voters, would pardon Donald Trump. In trying to win some base back, would pardon Donald Trump. So he already has if you drop out, you can be pardoned. You can get away with all of this. That option's already there. He just also has too much fucking ego, too much pride, too much, I am very big on being I'm very reluctant to call people narcissists, because the internet right now is calling everyone who has a remotely narcissistic trait a full-on narcissist, which is ridiculous because it means everyone truly is a narcissist. Everyone. I guess there's probably a few people out there whose brains actually are disabled in some way that don't work in the normal human way that maybe wouldn't be. But by the internet standards of who's a narcissist, it's everyone. So it's overused. Donald Trump, though, it's kind of like, I've made this example before. It's not right to diagnose people, but sometimes someone is so obvious. Like sometimes people have a version of Tourette's that is loud and vulgar, and it's so obvious that that's what's going on. You do go, oh, they've got Tourette's. Now I understand. Or something similar. And Donald Trump's narcissism is sort of the equivalent of the person at a funeral who can't stop screaming fuck titty, right? It's not that crazy when you're in that situation to go, I think that person has Tourette's, or to go that I think Donald Trump is a narcissist. It's not crazy. Let me see what's going on down here in the chat. What are y'all talking about with Nikki Haley and... Uh-oh, did somebody cuss in the chat? Obama! I'm just kidding. You can cuss in the chat. I don't care. You can't use slurs, but you can cuss in the chat. Hey, Paul's here. We don't have to see so much. Name of Jimmy's sex tape. Well played. And now I'm mad at you. No, I'm not. I fuck in the dark for sure. I just want to make sure that that's clear. I don't know. I could open up some lines. We can find out what people think, what people want to hear. I will have to turn off the music, I'm afraid, though I've been enjoying it. We'll open up some lines and let people call and see if y'all have some thoughts on this. I'd way prefer to talk to somebody who thinks I'm wrong about this or any other issue that I take up commonly. Are my camera zooms working right now? Kind of. These aren't at the angles I want them at. Let's move that back to, oh, and of course I don't have the right. Okay, well, let's do this then. Well, that's an even worse frame. And it's just reminding me that I really, as I open up the frame too much, how sad I am that I have not yet found that co-host of my dreams. Truly, I would love to have somebody here with me that I could have been bouncing all of this off with. But I think I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, I would love for that person to be someone like, we had Dominic before. Dominic was fucking amazing. Him and I jump off of each other a lot. There is a little bit of we compete for talking the most because neither of us are really like what you might call a guest host. At best, we're definitely both co-hosts. But neither of us are second fiddles. We're both lead singers style. Anyway, I definitely am at the spot where I'm like, I just want to meet that person. And I definitely recognize that I admire most the people for whom that person is their romantic partner. When I see like an Ethan and Ela, that sort of thing just fills my heart with longing and joy and desire. But I would settle for just somebody who conveniently can be here at the drop of a hat for something like this. Bum ba da bum ba da bum ba da bum 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 bum. Jake Nelson says narcissistic personality disorder is a spectrum. Some people are lower, some people are higher. Let me actually open those lines before I keep talking about more. Yeah, sure. And I think the theory is supposed to be kind of like autism is a spectrum that technically anybody is on. However, it's not until you're in a certain zone that you're considered autistic. And so I don't want to cheapen the idea everybody's a narcissist because everybody's on the narcissist spectrum. Therefore, this word has no meaning. If you're then going to call someone a narcissist, it's understood you're saying that they are in that qualifying zone. Or at least it should be understood that way. Morgan, if you're around to screen calls, I did do that. I may take a bathroom break in a minute. While we wait for all of that, let me go back to here, turn that to that, and that's all good. So if anybody wants to call, the number is 720-619-2288. Let me see what kind of title banner I have that I could just tell you all that with. I don't have a link in the description here of how to call in, but it's, oh man, I don't even remember. It's the same link it usually is if somebody wants to go and find that. Jimmy Snow, and we'll just make the other one. What the fuck is this? Because this has the number on it. 720-619-2288. 720-619-2288. What the fuck is this? What it says web link in description, but there's not. It's a lie. It's a lie. Anyway, scuba bop bop. Do you have to be in the U.S. to call? Anybody can call. Like I said, there is a link. It's open now, Amargan. You should be able to join in. There's usually a link. Let me go. I guess I'll go find it. I was kind of hoping somebody would do it for me. It's something like callinstudio.com/something. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I am not your supervisor. Bum ba bum ba bum bum. So if you want to call in with an opinion, a question, something that you think I might disagree with, you certainly could. Okay, here it is. In the live chat, I'm putting the link for if you want to call from a PC, you could do that. You could do that now. Do you have to be in the U.S. to call? You do not have to be in the U.S. to call, especially if you use that web link. I hope you're all enjoying the new profile photo with my little rainbow ring. That little rainbow guy. I wonder why Jimmy didn't do it because I want to. Well, this is a because I want to. I just wasn't sure I wanted to take calls. And if I do a show on the line regular, there's generally a promise with those shows that we're going to take calls. I wasn't sure I was going to. And I thought I might go a million different ways because I also want to talk about AI, VR, AR, this new Apple headset, all of those things. And we can talk about any of them, frankly, if you like. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put music back on and take a little bathroom break. Step away for a minute. See if we can gather some calls as that's happening. And we'll be back in a couple of minutes with calls. Let's see. Taking calls when returned. And we'll just do... One time I almost tweeted out my personal phone number. In fact, I think I did tweet it and then I deleted it immediately. Hopefully before anyone saw it. It was very fast. I almost tweeted out my personal number instead of my whatchamahoozit. Let's actually take this back down to that, and we'll bring it in. We'll return in a couple of minutes and take calls and talk about whatever the fuck. Here we go. Okay. Scooby-Doo-bop. Bop, bibbidi-bop. Eat that for the moment. Okay, we're back for the moment. Let me see that. There was a super chat that had come in. I think the backlash that Ford got from the general public when he pardoned Nixon would make Biden not pardon Trump. I'm not sure that that's the case, because while I get what you're saying, there is still a lot of legal theory out there that whether or not it was, there was a sort of general moral correctness to it, that legally and larger consequences wise, that it was the right thing. Again, not the side that I fall down on, but the theory out there that I'm aware of and isn't without any merit. Yeah. So yeah. Let's see. Let's start pulling in some calls here. I do want to say, well, no, we don't need to preempt much of anything, but yeah, we'll just jump in here. Sabrina in New York, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jimmy. How are you?
Just peachy. What did you want to ask about?
Well, you mentioned AI. My question is, now, I used to read Isaac Asimov a long time ago. Also, like Next Generation data being sort of an artificial intelligence. My question would be, if the AIs become sentient, how does society adjust to that? How do we determine their rights and responsibilities and how they fit in with society?
Yeah, so that's a tough question that any answer we come up with now won't end up being the full or maybe even remotely correct answer later. The first thing you have to come up with is, what's the line for sentience? How meaningfully different is our ability to feel and perceive things than a computer's ability to perceive and feel things? If you're simulating that kind of thing, if you're creating systems in which it goes, because if we just think about us as meat computers, if I'm in danger, the program in my computer sends me more adrenaline, sends me more resources to be able to escape that danger. And with that comes these things that we experience, of these feelings of fear, of anxiety, and such that we call feelings, or we call perception. And how different is that from a computer, which has its own system? Hey, you're in this kind of danger. We extend to you these resources. We put we haven't been able to in any significant way define human perception, define human consciousness, define human feeling. And I think as humans, in a sort of very human first, human centric concept, sort of think that we're very special, and that whatever, even if we programmed a computer to simulate feelings, that wouldn't actually be feeling, so it wouldn't be sentient. And we don't actually know that. We don't know whether or not that's true or not. And so the hardest question, honestly, isn't necessarily like, what rights do you give? I feel like when you actually get to the point of establishing sentience, it's almost a little bit easier at that point, especially from like the perspective of a secular humanist, where it's just, you create a society where whatever member of society you are, it works best, no matter what random things. And we would just add, so right now we try to create a society that works for people of all genders. We're failing at that. And of all races, we're failing at that. Of all intellectual capability, we're failing at that. But the goal is supposed to be to take care of everybody. And you would do the same thing with sentient computers and go, if I was in that position, what would I not just want as an arbitrary thing, but want as to be able to exist with basic dignities and such intact. But the hardest question about that is establishing sentience, not necessarily what you do with the sentience afterwards.
Yeah, that's true. There are sentience in cetaceans, but I guess they're not humans either. But I guess it would determine, we'd have to figure out what type of how sentience works and how do you determine sentience.
Yeah.
For different organisms.
And clearly, as a species at the moment, we do prioritize certain sentient beings over other sentient beings, and that is every single vegan on the planet. It's also true for, because there will be people like, well, you could just become a sentientist, and yet still, in practice, while in theory you might go, I want all sentient life to have some baseline equality, they don't. And our own practices of continuing to use electricity in ways that damages sentient people, especially in for things that we don't necessarily need to do, but then also to the greater things of environment destruction, but also certain, there's this conventional way, only sentient things. Sentience appears to have cropped up in a lot more places than we've given it credit for, like certain types of insects. I know arachnids and mantises appear to have a higher level of potential sentience than other things. But then also, even just perfecting our definition of sentience, we don't know the experience of an ant's brain when they are rapidly trying to get away. We just know that the part of our brain that lights up doesn't seem to light up in theirs, and that they have these collective things. So we don't even have a good definition of sentience for the things we think are sentient. Or whether or not even the ability to feel and the ability to perceive, whether that is really all that much more significant than just having the sensation of being alive, and whether or not if you have the sensation of being alive, which I guess some people might say that you don't have the sensation if you're not sentient, but again, that means that sentience isn't well defined, because insects clearly have some sort of sensation of being alive. So yeah, it's tough. It's a really tough question because we don't meaningfully engage with it within things that are sentient now, and how we would do it in the future. In the future, I think the main reason we would prioritize AI over humans or over animals that we don't currently prioritize is sheerly because if we don't, we might fear how AI might try to take whatever rights it wants. And so there's that too, a fear of the potential consequences if you don't do it.
That's true. All right. Well, thank you. Well, thank you for taking my call and answering my question. It's good discussion.
Cool. Thanks, Sabrina.
All right. Bye.
I just saw the vegan bait in chat, but I already addressed it. Let's, sticking on the topic of Trump, let's come back to it and talk to Elma in Mexico. Is it Elma or Alma?
Alma.
With an A or an E?
With an A.
I thought so.
I don't know if you remember me. We talked a little bit on Neil's channel.
Oh, yeah. I do remember you.
Oh.
Because I pointed out that Alma is a Mormon name to you, that it's used for characters, Mormon historical characters who were men, despite the fact that it's not traditionally a man's name, and they would have not been okay back in the era of naming. But that's across the Book of Mormon. Nephi, Lehi, they're also girls' names that were supposedly given to boys, as though a progressive society would have done so. But anyway, yeah, I do remember you.
Yeah. Well, we have been, from here in Mexico, we have been listening to the news that are coming out from the U.S. and everything. We're a little bit kind of scared because whatever is happening over there is sometimes gets replicated over here. So, like, by example, we have been seeing that some of the governments in Latin America, now they start to having like a theocracy just because they see that it's popular over there somehow. Yeah. Or at least that's how it's being portrayed. So in that case, what would you think will happen if anyone like Ron DeSantis will win? Will be worse than Trump, or do you think it will be the same?
No, I think it'll be worse than Trump. So first of all, the funny thing is no matter who you put in right now, they're inherently worse than Trump, including Trump. If you put Trump back in, new Trump is worse than old Trump, because he already has the foundation of so much of the judiciary that they prioritized getting through as many judges as possible when he was president. And now you have that bedrock foundation to start undermining, as they already do, the rights of queer people, the rights of brown people, and to start trying to put... Ron DeSantis is going heavily after foundational social things like public school, like wanting to, in public school, restrict how you can identify, restrict what a child can confide in you. If they have abusive parents at home, you may still have to call those abusive parents and tell them, hey, by the way, your child's terrified to come out to you because they know that you're abusive, but they told me and now I have to call and tell you. That's a law they're passing there. They're trying to interfere with adults' health care in Florida, and Ron DeSantis is the head of all of that. He wants to fundamentally turn everyone into a social conservative by force. He is so much. Donald Trump is sort of a loud man, strong man fascist, as far as just a fucking loud piece of shit who has people around him to make. Whereas Ron DeSantis more has the political and the messaging of fascism down and the ability to signal like, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to justify shit and I'm not going to win on the science. I'm not going to win on that stuff, whatever. I'm going to say this is about parents' choice or this is about employers' choice, which is where a lot of the racist bullshit comes in. What the relationship with Mexico would be like between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, which one would be better? I don't really know. It'll also depend on who Mexico has. Like if at the same time that Trump is in office, Mexico reelects some sort of authoritarian sack of shit like they did down in Brazil, they'll get along extremely well because Donald Trump loves those fuckers. Go ahead.
Yeah, and in Mexico we don't really, we are supposed to have elections, but to be honest, they just put whatever they want. It's not like, there's not, we just simulate that we are going to vote and stuff, and then we just get whoever they want. So, not to mention how scary it is to even run if you're not corrupt in Mexico. I was watching some of the stuff from the elections. Was it 2 years ago that all the elections were happening and you had candidates being just killed in public? Yeah. That stuff's pretty terrifying too. So it's one of those things where it's our country is trying to, I don't know. I don't even know what to call this emergence of Christo-fascism. You want to think that it's death throes, that it's the last thing before this outdated anti-progress, anti-science, anti-advancement ideology finally dies. But right before it dies, it seems most terrible as it's ever been. Oh, okay. Could be.
You want to hope that that's what's happening, but it's hard to say. Now, there are some things in America to be hopeful for, which is that my generation, the millennials, are the first generation that are more liberal than when they first turned 18. So usually you're in your more left of the American center. Again, I'm a leftist, so this is hardly that, but usually it's you start out at your leftmost point sometime right after high school and college, and then you get more conservative as you get older. And my generation is the first generation in a long time to be becoming less conservative as they get older. And that's something, because my generation's getting old. My generation is, let's see, I'm not at the very beginning. I want to say 1983 is the beginning of it. So you've got people now in their 40s who are millennials, and you have people who are running younger and stuff. And so there is the potential of seeing some sort of big change in the long run. But right now we've got this stupid bullshit and the stupid two-party system that tricks you even to going, nobody likes these two, but these are the two you have to pick from. It sucks. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, well, at least you are not yet like so bad as Guatemala, where they already have laws against blasphemy and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's sometimes it's nice to talk to people like you, Alma, just to remember, like, it could be worse. There are worse places, and we could be the things that we're working on. Obviously, there's places in Central and South America that are having these tremendous human rights issues. You see a lot of this happening also in parts of Africa and South America, places where, and the Middle East. I didn't mean to say South America twice. And the Middle East, where you're having Islamist extremists in Islam and then Christian extremists in Africa killing people for their identities. You have the laws that just passed in Uganda. You've got China's treatment of Muslims, as well as just treatment of their regular people and their fucking crazy social credit system that they're working on, and the authoritarian nature of that awful fucking place. And it's one of those things where I just look out everywhere and go, fuck, where isn't terrible? And it makes me feel a little bit better about, but the hard part is it's still real bad here in a way that threatens a lot of people's lives. And you can't forget about that. And you can't stop trying to make it better, because what the U.S. does in the long run, which is something I think you were starting to say toward the beginning, what the U.S. does has huge impacts on the rest of the world. And if we go to shit, the places that, or more to shit, the places that were already going to shit or were already shitty just become exponentially shittier.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's scary shit.
Okay, then. Well, thank you so much for taking my call.
Yeah, it was nice to talk to you again.
Great show.
Yeah, were you ex-Mormon, Elma? I'm trying to remember.
No, I am ex-JW.
That's right. Okay, cool. All right, well, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again one day.
Okay.
Bye, Elma.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it is funny where, like, there are times where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe how fucking terrible everything is and everyone is. And then this happened recently when those laws in Uganda were being passed, where it was just like, okay, it can get worse. So now with that, I'm going to be motivated to make sure it doesn't. And again, remember, as it becomes more socially acceptable, like these laws in Uganda and there are a lot of reactionary laws popping up in places like that. And a lot of them are doing it because they are seeing public support, like Twitter, that when they launch death penalties for queers, that people on Twitter are like, well, at least they're following the Bible. These people who say they care about the Constitution and religious freedom, and yet the moment anybody has it, they're like, no, I meant religious freedom for me. You're free to do what I tell you. That's what I meant. Jake in Illinois, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Jimmy?
It's going. It sounds like you just have a quick comment about use of narcissism, and basically just called to agree with me that we're using it too much.
Yeah, and here's the thing that I think can elevate the conversation, like can take it to that next level, is that yes, when we talk about spectrums, there is a certain, like, it's like using racist or bigot, or like overusing those terms, like overusing narcissist is the same way. There's a certain threshold. Like, everybody has, like, certain tendencies that line up with narcissism. Everybody has some level of tendencies that match up with that. But it's when we reach this certain threshold, and it's that spectrum thing that we were talking about, that like with autism or anything else that's on a spectrum, it's like, okay, here's where it's normative, and here's where it reaches a point where it becomes unhealthy. And what you're saying about Trump and his narcissism is like, yes, you are dead nuts on point with this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fucking so goddamn smart and not a narcissist at all. This is meant to be a joke. No, I get it. And the thing is, as we're having these discussions, if we're giving it to everybody, it makes it terribly ineffective as a term. Because if everybody's a narcissist, suddenly no one is. It's kind of like how ADHD may very realistically become the baseline. So many people were recognizing that. And by the way, I'm not saying that this is making it untrue, quite the opposite. It looks like it is possible that more people who are born after a certain year, and it's likely because of a certain amount of both ways in which habitual parenting happened, or parenting habits happen. It's looking like it's also the amount of stimulation, the amount of stuff we are given now with technology at our fingertips. It may be the case in a few short years that more people have ADHD than don't. And therefore, ADHD will no longer technically be a disorder because it will be the baseline. If anything, what we now call neurotypical will be the fucking weird shit. Because it's turning out that ADHD, the compared to people from the past, yes, everybody's somewhere on that spectrum, but now where they are in mass is closing in. But anyway, we have all these terms, and we can make something like that happen that doesn't deserve to by overusing these terms. And suddenly, if everybody's a narcissist, then no one's a narcissist. Somebody had mentioned in chat, what about the word groomer? I feel very much about that way, the word groomer. I am very opposed to using the term groomer to mean anything besides an adult basically conditioning a child so that they could have sex with that child when they turned 18. That they are putting in the work now to make sure they can fuck that person when they're legal. There might be a couple other cases I'd be somewhat comfortable using it on, but now it is extended into just fucking everything. And now the right overuses it for ridiculous stuff. And unfortunately, the left is overusing it too to mean totally non-sexual things in general, and sometimes just political things. Shoe on Head is a very controversial person, and she has a lot of very cringy takes, in my opinion. I don't hate her because it's hard to make me hate anybody. However, this has been a recent thing where people are saying she groomed young boys who now have become political assholes to be those political assholes. What a fucking mistake it is to use that word, and it cheapens the experience of people who were groomed as a type of sexual abuse. If there needs to be a term for the other stuff and you can establish abuse, let's do a new term. Taking this word groomed, which should maintain its original realm, that way is such a fucking long-term mistake, and it's going to make the word mean nothing.
Absolutely, Jimmy, and that is my exact point. And this is where you and I see eye to eye, and this is what keeps me coming back to you and watching your stuff. And believe me,
you don't have
brother,
to compliment me. I'd way rather you just told me to go fuck myself.
I have many times.
Good enough. Thanks, Jake.
In super chat, I've told you to go fuck yourself many times.
Good.
Because I understand, as somebody with CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder,
yep.
Somebody that has experienced prolonged childhood abuse.
Yeah.
I totally relate with so many things that you're saying, and this is what keeps me coming back and watching your stuff and talking with you and trying to have dialogue with you and like,
for real, wrap up the part that's being so nice to me. The more a person tells me they like me, the more I start to question their judgment. It just makes me so fucking uncomfortable.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Make a final point or a final question. Thank you so much, Jake. I want to say I think you're very kind and stuff, but how nice you're being makes me want to move on. So please give a final point.
Look, I relate to you in that inability to accept.
You're still kind of doing it though. Yeah, go ahead. Wrap up.
Inability to accept
sure.
Positive compliments, like that inability to accept compliments. That's an awful thing.
It comes from multiple things, but also I feel like it's just a tremendous waste of time. To me, it's like,
but no, when it comes to Trump, you are absolutely right. There's this threshold where people who have experienced certain kinds of trauma and people who have like been exposed to this awful stuff, we're like, no, what this guy is saying is fucking bullshit, and it's fucking awful, and we need to go the other direction away from this fucking guy.
Sure.
And you are absolutely right in that. And
thanks.
I just want to, you know, like, I know it's hard for you to
Jake,
to take compliments,
I'm giving you like 10 more seconds. I can't do it more. Go ahead. Last point. We're moving on.
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
I know it's hard for you to take compliments.
Thanks.
But you are so dead on with that.
I know.
You are so right.
Here's my egotistical response. Anything I actually think I've done that is praiseworthy, I've already praised myself. You can't compliment me. So there's no point to it, is all I'm saying. Thanks, Jake, for calling. And appreciate the clarifications.
Love you, brother.
See you,
Take
Jake.
it easy.
So that's a reverse of an old joke I used to make when people would attack me, because it's actually more true, which is there is no insult you can give me greater than the ones I've given myself. And that's super true. It's so funny when somebody like, and you blah, 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 blah. I will say it can be frustrating, and I've had to deal with this issue being an ill-prepared, not as prepared as I should have been for how fucking shitty people are and the way they'll just make shit up about you or just turn anything into a conspiracy. It's been a frustrating thing, and it hurt me a lot back when I gave a fuck. And now I'm just at this position of like, I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't even give a fuck about the things that I like. There are going to be things that I actually do. They very rarely come up, but that people at large, not necessarily at large, but many people will be like, that's wrong too. And you fucking prove it to me and I'll change my thing. But I'm done pretending to have any level of perfection or even to act like I have my shit figured out. But I've got some things figured out, like when I should start believing in something. I've got the skepticism stuff down pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. But I'm a highly flawed individual, and anybody who looks up to me should stop doing that. I also don't like hero worship's fucking crazy to me too. I'm very excited by people who are like, yo, your vision, the things that you're trying to build, the things you're trying to do, that's awesome. Almost this thing that's independent from me, but that they recognize like that thing you're influencing and it's a cause I believe in and I want to be a part of that cause. That stuff I love, but I get real fucking weird about. I just know all of my faults and I know what I'm look like when I'm pooping, and so it's just hard to take anything seriously positive. Jordan in Oregon, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hello. Hey, can we turn off the echo in the background?
Sorry. My sweetheart is listening as well, so she's gonna head out of the room.
Oh, no worries. Great. Do you want to give me her first name? You want me to give her a shout out?
Jordan. Desi.
Your sweetheart is Devin?
She's been a huge fan. Yeah. Desi. Dezi.
Desi, what up?
She's been a huge fan of yours for a long time now.
Well, be a moderate fan of the things I do instead of a huge fan of me. But anyway, I appreciate that. Anyway, Jordan, it said you wanted to talk about new tech and how it'll affect stuff.
There's been some cool new tech and some other stuff that but I did want to be mildly pedantic to start because, unfortunately, that was an incorrect statement about the word grooming. It was used for 98 years to mean preparing for a career, role, or contest before ever being applied to pedophilia.
I totally get what you're saying. That is not a category.
That's just being pedantic.
Yeah. And that's not a definition jump that is important. If we're talking about, because it also meant, to style the hair of your dog.
But if they were groomed, but if they were groomed to a position by a person who encouraged them to go and follow this political path, that is technically a correct use of the word grooming.
I understand.
And I was just being mildly pedantic.
I understand, yeah. I'm saying when we charge these words to have such a negative response, this is why I don't like the mass use of the word gaslighting. People want to use
agreed.
You're gaslighting me. And now, gaslighting, that's a type of abuse. It's a type of huge psychological abuse. That person is a terrible abuser. Meanwhile, the person was saying, your memory of this is not my memory of this. That's you gaslighting me, and that's not what gaslighting fucking is at all. It's literally like, it's a rather deliberate, some people will argue with me on it, but I would say deliberate in the same way that a lot of abuse is deliberate. It might be mostly happening or you might be starting your action subconsciously, but then purposefully doing these things. It is a rather deliberate attempt to make a person believe they are crazy. And there's sort of this implied thing of because you don't want them to exist in the real world. Otherwise, you're not going to get a certain thing. Like you're not going to get your way. You either want, in the traditional cases, literally like trying to make someone believe they're crazy and for other people to believe that that person is crazy. So you could have them institutionalized, but at the very least, to be able to discredit them. And to use gaslighting when I just say, you're wrong, your memory of that is wrong, your perception of that is wrong, whatever, is fucking so goddamn stupid. And to then try to then give people the impact of, well, I used the word gaslighting, which is associated with abuse, therefore you're an abuser, is also stupid. Anyway, that was just a little mini rant about the words. And my own pedantry.
I fully agree that we can't. Well, that was me trying to like. I don't like when words get twisted or when the meanings get lost, like the original meanings get lost in the new meanings, and that's something else I don't like because good words have been made bad too many times for me, and so I try to use the original meanings of words semi-consistently to try and bring back some of that like nuance to the language because we're losing it.
Yeah,
our language is becoming too muddy and too overlapping.
Is it, or are you just gaslighting me? Thank you.
But there is a really cool thing that I did want to talk about starting after that. This is the original thing I called in about, because I kind of think that sometimes we focus on all of the bad things that are happening. And a really, really cool thing popped up on my feed this morning, and because I follow a bunch of science websites and a bunch of tech websites and stuff, and they were talking about this company. It's called Dexmat. They're calling it Galvorn after the armor from the Lord of the Rings that the elves make.
Yeah.
The fibers that they make that is like the non-mithril, but it's like as strong as mithril, basically. It's like their version. That's what they named it after. It's a really cool leap forward in carbon fiber nanotube technology. What they managed to do is make a high conductivity, highly flexible, very strong fibrous mesh that also recaptures the carbon that is emitted during the process into the fibers themselves as a long capture carbon.
Because each layer is only a single atom thick of these carbon hexagons. Yeah. I actually know about this thing too. They're awesome. It's fucking amazing.
The Galvorn is actually, well, this one's a real like game changer because they're going to be able to do things like make batteries out of this.
Yeah.
And so instead of having one thing that we're desperate for is we need to stop repping that lithium ion is a smart move. It's one of the it's going to be a leading cause of a massive amount of damage to our environment over the next 50 years if we keep leaning into it. And we have to lean away from lithium ion as fast as possible. And so we need to be researching new battery technologies.
Yeah, or at minimum, new power technologies where our use of lithium ion can be restricted to only rechargeable stuff, because that would still make a super significant difference.
I mean, again, that could help. But let's talk about the Great Salt Lake. The Great Salt Lake is at 30%. Its salinity level has reached a level where everything is dying, and
everything's already there's nothing alive. There's never been anything alive in the Great Salt Lake.
Well, there has been in the one half. There's been the high salinity half and then the non-high salinity half, and there is actually things that live in the low salinity half.
I see, and you're saying that the stuff is seeping into the. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Well, the thing is, what they've been doing is they've been diverting water
out of the
Great Salt Lake, and the number one thing. No, just one half. It's actually the lake was divided into two segments by a berm in the middle of it, and the salt stayed on one side, but mostly. So they've been diverting massive amounts of water out of the lake to then evaporate the water off and then collect the lithium that's left behind mixed with the salt, because that's an old ocean bottom. And so all of the salts and nutrients and lithiums and everything else sink to the bottom right there. And it's kind of like the Salton Sea. That's a main source of lithium that we've been mining for a long time now. But the amount of damage that it's doing that we didn't intend, that we're now about to start seeing, and that's after about 15 years of doing this, because that's when we started mining some local lithium.
Yep.
But we're seeing some really, really extreme environmental damage starting to come up, And they're about to start having to spend billions of dollars doing dust control things and all kinds of other stuff because we're also entering a mega drought. And so
yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
There's not really a good hope.
Basically, the point I was making is
doing this.
The point I was making is with humans in mind, and also with the fact that we have so many deserts that plenty of them have lithium-rich areas as well. There is a potential where we can solve most of the lithium environmental impact by making sure that lithium is only being used for rechargeable and recyclable as the recycling technology has become better. Hang on, let me finish. As they become, if we're only using them for those, and then we're improving our power up where the electricity itself is coming from, and we're not making disposable lithium-ion batteries and the stuff, you can actually solve a shit ton of the issue. Plus, I imagine in the next couple of decades, if we had to stick with lithium, we'll be able to start bringing lithium to Earth from, there's tons of it in space, tons of it. And that would potentially, whether the answer is actually stop mining all lithium anywhere versus we need to fundamentally change our relationship with lithium would be the thing that's up for debate. But I do agree with you that we are, like with everything else, fossil fuels and coal and everything, being real fucking stupid and cavalier about the way we're treating the environment, all to make sure that we always have battery.
If we want the best power generation, we've known it runs on water, man. It's literally the splitting of the water molecule because water is the emission. The emissions from the process of creating a hydrogen fuel cell and then using that fuel cell emits steam, which is water. You start with water and you end with water. And it creates an enormous amount of electricity along the way for a fraction of the amount of electricity that it costs. And we have known about this for an incredibly long time, and we refuse to apply the simplest, most effective battery power technology ever to the planet because it's not worth a damn thing.
Well, it's not worth a damn thing until you can do it cheaply, because unfortunately in our world that still matters. It's kind of like desalination. Desalination is only
do it cheaply.
Jordan, I love you to pieces.
If you can give power away for free, there's no money in it.
I love you to pieces, but you gotta start letting me finish my sentences. You gotta. Like desalination, the technology for desalination only recently became efficient enough that it is being turned into the alternative solution for, in the past, water shortages. Desalination just wasn't an option because it was cheaper to bring water from other countries than it was to desalinate. And right now there is no no technology cheap enough that runs off of just water. With the exception of places like when we're using dams and stuff, but you're not talking about dams. You're talking about fission.
It's actually one step below. It's a very simple fission process because you're just diffusing the bond between a hydrogen molecule and an oxygen molecule in water, and so it takes a specific arc frequency across the water to create that process. And it doesn't take a particularly significant amount of electricity. It does take a good jolt to start it. But once it's started, it's now producing far more electricity than it costs to run because of the amount of hydrogen that is being collected. And then you mix the hydrogen with the correct amount of oxygen that's purified, and it becomes an incredibly powerful and efficient fuel source. In fact, it's at least 10 times more powerful than rocket fuel.
So what's your hypothesis on? Yeah, because I know that this is the plan for rockets already. That the future of rockets is going to be water based. Because they're talking about space travel and stuff. They're talking about get to the moon, refuel at the moon with water using these types of technologies for fuel. What's your hypothesis then on why? And we probably won't stick on this topic for super long because I think most people will say this is even further out of the top. But what's your hypothesis for why no company is taking the financial incentive and being the first one to do that?
Well, the thing is, it's because at the end of the day, there will be the surplus in the power is the problem. There's too much power for too little cost. And so it's hard because people understand how little water costs. And they, literally, you have to find a way to sell them on how expensive all of the equipment is. But it's one of those situations where you build it and then you turn it on. And once it's running, it's not that high cost to keep running, and it's not that expensive or difficult to utilize in the fashion that you're utilizing it, as long as you continue using it safely.
Jordan,
because it's not using a bunch of dangerous stuff. So there's no money in it because you can't.
See, I don't agree with that.
People won't pay.
I get what you're saying. I'm just trying to apply my skepticism. There's no money in it because you're describing a situation where a power company cares about what the actual cost per kilowatt is. But if a person could actually set that up for less than the cost that it would be, because you're saying that it runs so cheaply after it's there, you could come here to, I think we're at like 15 cents a kilowatt hour right now, per kilowatt hour in Texas on average. It's somewhere between 15 and 18 cents. And if you could come in and say, hey, it doesn't matter what you think it should cost or what my costs are, everywhere else is doing it for 15 to 18 cents. I'll do it for 8. And even if it's only costing them 2 cents a kilowatt hour because this is so efficient, that 6 cents that they're making, just look at industry in America. You've got that, you have pharmaceuticals. This is how the oil companies work. The oil companies spiked up prices even though they were not losing money. Their costs hadn't gone up. Their profits went up higher than ever, just cause they wanted to. So the actual cost anymore doesn't matter because we live in such a fucking capitalist cuck fest. So I guess that's what more my skepticism pops in is if it was as easy as you're saying, Jordan, I think someone would have done it because they would have become independently rich for undercutting the power companies.
According to many people, especially in the inventing community, people have done it, and they've all disappeared after having done it. And it's been
a conspiracy.
Having been rediscovered and then disappeared over and over and over again. And it's not like
could be true, by the way. I don't think oil companies are above killing people.
Again, and like this is one of those things where like OPEC is literally it's a coalition of countries whose entire GDP is based on oil, and they're one of the most powerful groups on our entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like they literally have their fingers in every single first world country so deeply that you will listen to OPEC.
Yeah, I just got to say, Jordan,
that would be my other answer.
There's a lot you're presenting that I'm open to, but I do hope that I hope you understand that we're talking about conspiracies basically here, and so my skepticism is going to remain intact at the moment. But I mean, it definitely seems to me that
I do recommend you look into the actual like foundational scientific community information on the subject that does exist into water fission to create
I'm already aware that
hydrogen and purified oxygen.
Yeah, I will say I'm already aware that it is almost consensus. It's understood that the fission of H2O molecules is the future of energy, or at least a significant future of energy. And I do know that, and I'm not trying to say like from the ground up this is insane what you're saying or anything. It's literally like what all of these. More of what I'm saying is there are certain figures out there who would benefit so much from this that can't just be disappeared, right? Like to me, it's like my total disgust for billionaires is why I go. It seems to me like if the conspiracy existed the way you think it does, Elon Musk still would have done it and would be making so much money as now not just one of the world's biggest internet provider competitors. They basically expand as fast as they can as soon as they say with their new Starlink, the fastest growing electric car company. He's this perfect example of terrible capitalism.
Where the battery recycling facility is, Elon? Where's my battery recycling facility?
Sure. Again,
never even broke ground on it yet.
I am not saying this as a fan of Elon Musk. I'm saying this as a recognition of billionaire greed and the fact that you couldn't just disappear Elon and no one would notice, especially for doing something like that. And also the fact that I know that they are working on that SpaceX is working on H2O fission for refueling from the moon. And so it does seem like there is a gap that doesn't get totally satisfied by some of the conspiracy. But again, I don't know. This is a topic that you've brought to me that I'm familiar with pieces of. Like I said, the carbonate stuff, the single layers of carbon atoms. and how that's going to revolutionize batteries, but also not just batteries, lots of other things. And
no. There's thousands of other applications to the.
Yeah, tons.
But for me specifically, batteries are one of the single worst things we're doing, other than plastic, because of some of the other things that happens when you make a battery. Like a lithium-ion battery doesn't just have lithium in it anymore, and lithium that has been ionized is no longer the same as just lithium that used to be sitting in a lake, and it's going to take an incredibly long time unless it's properly handled and disposed of. And like one of the biggest problems with alkali batteries is that 9 out of 10 people throw them in their garbage can instead of taking them to a battery recycling facility.
Yeah. And then even
Like
a lot of
the
a lot of the recycling facilities are just glorified middlemen for disposal facilities. This is true of also the American
and they
Recycling
don't dispose
Program.
of them properly, and so and that's the big problem. The recycling is the biggest greenwashing issue that we have, and so me relying on corporations to follow through with that, I need us to focus on battery technology more than relying. We need to get the word out and get all the people on the ground level. The ground level engineers that are willing to put in a little bit of time on the side, be spending your free time on battery tech.
Now, Jordan, you're not advocating for a water fission battery in the home.
No, I'm actually advocating I'm actually more advocating for some sort of crystal solid state battery.
Okay.
And carbon in this form is considered a crystal. And so,
solid state batteries in general,
perfect way.
Solid state batteries are something every company is competing to get a good one of first. Like that one, that's the holy grail of power tech.
But that's what we need. We need to not be pouring money into creating EVs that are like using. We need to be slowing down EV production a little bit and focusing on battery technology while we get the grid up to like code even to deal with the EVs. Because that's the other, I love electric vehicles, but we're doing it wrong.
This would be a much longer conversation, but I'm reluctant to, I'll just end here and then I'll give you the last words. I'm reluctant to accept that it would be better to slow down EV production, which would mean at the cost of there being more gas-powered vehicles than... Let me finish, Jordan. Jordan, I told you, I'm going to give you the final word. I'm reluctant to accept that we should slow down electric vehicles while we do all of those upgrades to the grid and everything. My instinct is still electric vehicles and even lithium-ion batteries while developing those new technologies and upgrading the grid is the better move. Go ahead, last word, Jordan.
I would push for more very small, high-efficiency gasoline engines in the vein of old VW Bugs and old Mini Coopers that used to get like 50 and 60 miles to the gallon kind of cars. And also hybridization cars utilizing high-powered gas generators to recharge the battery along the way. So you could have smaller batteries and still a decent charge range and only use like 2 to 4 gallons of gas to do it.
Cool.
That would be my option. And also I wanted to say, as an also former Mormon, I think you're doing good work, especially when you talk about things that the church has done. And
thank you. We'll end the compliments there.
You're a pretty solid guy, and I hope you try to do as good as you can every day.
Thanks, Jordan. Have a good one.
Yep. Bye.
It's always at the compliment part where I'm like, well, that's a good place to end. Maybe a few moments sooner. Let's see. That's not the right one. I'll just go in order here. Bree wants to talk about trans healthcare and what we can do about it. Bree, my number one thing is going to be to recommend that you are promoting the Transatlantic Call-In Show everywhere. Maybe you call in with this question to there as well, and getting that resource in front of everybody.
Absolutely. Am I coming through okay for you?
Yeah. I mean, you're a little bit, your mic's a little hot. It might benefit you to move the microphone a little bit away from your face, but other than that, you're good.
That sound better?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bree.
All right. Yeah. So I'm just I work in the healthcare industry, so I see these things and how they play out, and I just have suggestions on what we can do as just members of the consumer market that will directly impact how these things unfold, because that's where the money is, right? The money, you mentioned big pharmaceutical companies that they basically own their own senators and such. So if you're in one of these red states that is rolling out these bills against trans health care, especially health care for children, but in states like Missouri and Oklahoma, the language of the bills that have passed are now targeted at refusing health care or gender-affirming care to trans adults as well. So it's not limited to children anymore. It was never about the children. But you can help by these insurance companies. They thrive on their reputations. I know because I work directly with them on occasion. I won't go into too much details, but if you call and ask about how they are handling trans health care for and they encourage you to do that. The Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, there's so many of them that you can they want you to call and ask about their plans. They encourage you to. It's how it's their business model. So if everybody's calling and asking about trans healthcare and voicing worry about that and saying, I'm going to make decisions on even if you're not, you don't have to be trans or have a trans person in your family. You don't have to actually be interested in enrolling in any of these plans. Just calling and asking about them will trigger people to pass it up the chain. This is what this is what the market's concerned about. This is what we need to focus on the market. And that will push their senators to vote this way or that way or any which way that we need them to go right now. I'm living as a refugee in Illinois from Missouri. I can't medically exist in Missouri. So here I am in the state of Illinois.
Gotcha. Well, great. Thank you, Bree.
Yeah, thank you. You have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye. Let's see. Melody from New Jersey wants clarification on narcissism. Go ahead, Melody.
Hi. So I'll keep this brief because I saw that part of the podcast. Love your channel. Love your work. Okay, compliment over.
Thanks.
So I was very scattered when I first started the call. I don't know if I summarized what I wanted to speak about very well.
It's okay. Just ask it how you want to ask now.
Yeah. So what I was thinking about is you were talking. This was a while ago now, a few minutes ago, about how the term narcissist and like narcissistic abuse, how that has been sort of watered down and then like misattributed to things that do not qualify. And that got me thinking about, I've heard other arguments against the term narcissistic abuse. I have heard people argue that it should just be considered emotional abuse and we don't need this separate term narcissistic abuse. Now, I've mostly heard that argument from this internet personality that I'm aware of and kind of loosely watching. And this person is a self-aware narcissist.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
like they've been diagnosed and everything.
A narcissist should not decide. Twitter should not decide. These are conversations that should be having and hopefully being the boundaries being established by people who are actually experts. The thing about narcissism is asking a narcissist how they want to be treated in society, unlike a lot of other conditions, is not always going to be a good thing. Because actual narcissistic personality disorder, there's also this overlaps with certain intensities or places on the spectrum of borderline. It overlaps with certain types of sociopaths. And there's one other that is escaping me, but when engaged, they get worse. And the way they established this was therapy. You actually, narcissists...
engaged meaning what exactly?
That's what I'm explaining now. So therapy would be one way of engaging. No worries. Therapy would be one way of engaging and going like, hey, this is what you have, this is what you... And it turns out that many of these people, and it might not be everybody on the narcissistic spectrum, but again, it's within a certain part of that spectrum, within borderline, within sociopaths, within, God, there's some other one. It might be antisocial personality disorder. There's one other one, but where these people actually get worse from therapy because they actually
explosives.
I don't remember. It the right word could be in front of me, and I wouldn't necessarily connect that that's the right one. It's not just the word I'm missing. It's which one is. And by the way, it might not only be
just
one.
the whole concept.
Yeah. So there are people within these groups, and with I know with NPD specifically, it's an even more significant portion who actually get worse from treatment because the nature of both the intensity of their disorder and how untreated it's been for years, not being caught early enough, not having early maintenance, not having all that stuff. They actually get worse because they learn how to manipulate people better by practicing on the therapist. And so it's hard to go to an advocate, a narcissist representative, and say on the basis of their having the experience of being a narcissist that they would only share how society should treat narcissists, because it would appear that you would have some portion of those people who would use that opportunity to maliciously advance as opposed to progressively advance.
That is sort of the dilemma that I feel that I'm facing, because this account, I got into this account first just because they were saying things in a more general sense of, like, look at this way that neurotypicals, it's dumb. It's a meme account. And they'll make things where they'll say, like, there's a stock photo of some guy smiling, and it's like, oh, don't say that you're autistic. You're so smart. Or something stupid like that.
I mean, there's tons of stupid conversations surrounding that stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And also,
yeah, I mean, I'm neurodivergent myself. I've been in some of those conversations.
We've got to stop also as individuals going, I have X and I do Y, and Y is quirky. So I will now represent Y as a symptom of X. So let me just say this clearly.
Goodness.
If you leave cabinets open in your kitchen, that does not mean you definitely have ADHD. And stop watching TikToks that tell you that does mean you have ADHD. Are there people with ADHD who leave them open because of their ADHD? Yes. There are people with ADHD who leave them open not because of their ADHD. But the bigger point isn't that specific example that we have to argue about. Everything a person does every quirk of mine that I have is not a symptom of autism. Okay? So stop doing that. You all are fucking ruining the internet and making it so hard. And by the way, that kind of shit does red flag in other people's minds, and it makes it harder. If you have these representatives out there who are not actual experts on even their condition, but then acting like, as an autistic person, if I watch one more fucking video of people saying stimming is basically acting like a child and rubbing a blankie, I'm gonna fucking explode, because that is not what stimming is. And you don't gotta just fucking take it from us. Stimming, by the way, for most autistic people is a painful and unpleasant experience. So stop being dicks. Anyway, it's usually a lot of overstimulation and then hyper. Yeah, when I overstimulate, I think I've done it on the channel once, but I'm pretty good at knowing when it's coming. I have hyperextension of my limbs and my fingers, and it's done it so bad before. I've had lasting muscle pain, and I think I almost broke my arm once stimming so hard. Stop turning diseases stop infantilizing, not diseases, disorders. Stop infantilizing disorders and pretending, oh, I'm autistic. That means I act like I'm 7 all the time. Fucking stop representing communities and stop telling people what diagnostic criteria to look out for if you don't actually know what diagnostic criteria to look out for, you fucking assholes. Anyway, I don't have strong feelings on it either way. Go ahead, Melody.
Wow, that sounded... I agree with you 100% on that, by the way.
Good enough.
Wow. Man, now my head is scrambled again. I should have prepared for this better.
Well, you can't prepare for all the fucking stupid rants I'm going to go on.
You know what? That's fair. I can't actually tell. I haven't seen the hair and do you have the long hair back yet, or are you still? Where's the rant bun? I want to see the rant bun.
Not only do I not have the long hair back, I would not anticipate that I will have the long hair back.
Well, I respect your decision, but I will miss the rant bun.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to circle back on, you mentioned the thing about stimming and how it's actually usually very painful and not a pleasant experience.
I was speaking too broadly. There are people who have different experiences of stimming, but then there are these people who are acting like it is this other ridiculous stuff, or that it's basically acting like a child and rubbing a blankie or a plushie or whatever. It's, yeah, anyway, go on.
Okay. So this is coming from a place of I'm wanting to learn. I'm open-minded here. I apologize if this is going to come off as ignorant. I am somebody who I'm now wondering if this is the correct word, but 30 minutes ago I would have said that I'm someone that I consider myself to stim on occasion.
You might. There's other types of stimming. For me, it's usually the hyperextension. I do pace a lot as well. So stimming is just short for self-stimulating, but not everything which is self-stimulating. And just because you did it with a child's voice makes it an autistic stim. So I would say my pacing is very consistent also with stimming, especially when I feel not well or I'm having an unpleasant sensory overload. And it's usually related to sensory overload. So I very nervously pace. I was at Matt's house with Arden and then a few friends a few days ago, and must have been the most unpleasant experience because everyone else was sitting on the couch and I was just pacing around the couch back and forth.
Oh no!
It can also come in the form of rocking. Depending on what's going on in my life, I might rock or not, but it seems to be something that comes and goes. And that's actually one of those ones where it could be that I'm rocking because I'm autistic. It might also be that I'm rocking and I'm not, and that I would have done this whether I was autistic or not. It's not, even within yourself, you need to acknowledge that not everything that can be a symptom of autism is a symptom of your autism or whatever else.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I feel like the line is kind of blurry because neurotypicals will also fidget. I mean, fidget spinners were originally, I think, meant to be an ADHD fidget toy. I don't know enough about ADHD to know if that's actually a thing that's useful, but that was the original intention. And then back in 2016, 2017, everybody was playing with them. And
yeah, autistic stimming is also often mistaken for Tourette's.
Fidgeting and stimming, is that the same thing? Or is it different? Is it an overlap?
Could it be the same thing? Yes. Is it overused as a term? A ton. So could a person who is fit, because I have a tendency, but I don't necessarily associate this with my autism. I definitely occupy my hands at almost all times. There are 3 decks of cards within almost reach of me right now because that's my main go-to. Not necessarily related to being autistic. Stimming is also sometimes mistaken for Tourette's. There are people who do some verbal stimming, and it's sort of it's often associated with other things that autistic people have. So like where you might have a phrase or a song lyric. For me, it's most often song lyrics. A single phrase from a song, maybe a single line that's just repeating over and over again.
Wait, that's actually. Okay, interesting. So,
but again,
that's what I was going to say. That's why
that happens to people without autism too, which means it can happen to you unrelated to autism. So could it be autism? Yes. Could it not be? Yes. I have asthma. If I get bronchitis, does that mean it's my asthma, or could I have gotten a virus? The virus can give me bronchial issues without my asthma interacting. It's sort of that same sort of thing.
So here's the other thing. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this right, but are you coming at this from the angle of thinking that I'm autistic?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not even thinking about you or your. I'm speaking broadly.
I wasn't sure if you meant figuratively you or me specifically, because
I'm speaking knowing that there's an audience who probably goes to TikTok and sees autism and Tourette's lied about with Tourette's straight up faked every day.
Memes of
DID is another one that has been. DID has also been utterly misrepresented. Years ago, my psychologist and I were under the impression I had DID. It happened to be that there was not yet a concept of CPTSD and the way it interacts with autism. And it turns out many people with CPTSD and autism end up being misdiagnosed with DID, as well as other things, including Tourette's. And I went through years of that, years of not knowing what it was. And it wasn't until it's to the point that, what's it been now? I'm sure some of you saw the video. It was 2 years ago or so that I was diagnosed with autism. And we had already been talking about CPTSD at that point. It's to the point now where it's like, this makes sense. All the stuff is working. All of these exercises are working. We're doing the workbooks. We're doing all that stuff.
That light bulb moment.
But I'm still,
wait,
but I'm still paranoid because I've also been like, oh, this makes sense of things that were wrong before. And so it's sort of a scary, shitty thing. But
yeah, it's weird. I know exactly what's going on. I'm being vague deliberately just because my thing is rare and specific enough that disclosing what it is might actually dox me. But it is, I'm trying to think the best way to summarize it without getting too specific. It is a physical abnormality in my brain. It's something.
Whatever's happening, I can't diagnose you. I'm not your physician, and I'm not qualified as your physician.
No, I'm not asking
Gotcha.
you to.
So
I was diagnosed in the
saying,
womb. I know what's up.
I could hear that you were evaluating how much you wanted to share. Just don't. You don't have to share anything. Whatever it is that you are wondering about, if you see specific things that represent you, and you don't have the resources to go get a diagnosis and talk to people, you do have you do have access. You can get almost all of the workbooks exist in some PDF free form, and there's also there's ways on the internet to go to Google and put in certain phrases and find an ebook version of almost every book that exists. I just don't remember what the words you put in are. As far as if you don't have access to those to the resources to get the diagnosis and do it through whatever, go use whatever resources it is now. Not necessarily with the presumption that, yes, I for sure have autism, because it's not even meaningful to just find out you have autism. You also need to find out what your relationship with it is, which is why my relationship with the concept of self-diagnosis has changed, because I actually think it is hurting a lot of people because they're going, oh, I'm diagnosed as this, and now I'm also going to take all of my cues and direction after that. I've self-diagnosed as autistic, and now I'm going to behave and act as though the things on TikTok for sure are correct and stuff. And instead, they should be downloading fucking workbooks, and they should be downloading books about having autism and books about how to have certain conversations, how to advocate for yourself, how to do all of those things. And so the reason why my position on self-diagnosis, I used to be pro self-diagnosis, has changed, is that my position wasn't necessarily pro self-diagnosis. It was actually pro self-advocacy, pro resources for people. And people have actually, it would appear, decided self-diagnosis, yes, but the learning about advocacy and resources and therapy that you don't have to have a therapist for, no. Now it's about this other thing. And again, it's from watching enough TikToks, just absolutely fucking outraged at the number of people who want to convince you that being autistic means acting like you're fucking 9. And while there can be things that appear that way with some people, it becoming a popular trend, and as though that is some sort of thing you would want to broadcast largely
trying to make it cute.
Yeah, it's fucking infantilizing, and it's outraging to see happen. And on the off chance that there are some people with symptoms that resemble that, it's fucking abusive to them as well. But maybe there I'm jumping to some presumptions that many of these people on TikTok are faking it. On the basis of some of the people who are currently, I think but also on the basis of how many people we have found that out about that. And DID was the popular one. Turns out most of those creators are full of shit, those really popular creators from years back. And now the psychology community is questioning whether or not DID in any meaningful way exists, or if it's actually a part or a misattribution of other problems that need to be treated independently, which I've not taken a position on that. Just making you aware that I actually think it is less popular in the psychiatry and psychology community. The majority of people actually think DID is not community. I mean, amongst the physicians, that DID is actually not what people think it is, and that it's probably a totally different set of conditions completely.
Well, I think the other thing with psychology is it has such a, are you familiar with the concept of a half-life of knowledge?
I got cookies. I assume you're trolling me right now. A half-life of what did you say?
a half-life of knowledge. So it's essentially, so like you take a scientific field, like in this case we're talking about psychology, and you say at a given point in time what is recognized as fact, what is likely true. I'm being very
yes, I've heard it before, and I've pulled up the definition. Yeah, I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, and psychology, the half-life of knowledge in psychology is, I believe, 5 years. Granted, the last time I heard that was over 5 years ago, so that number may have changed now. But I'm thinking the fact that number is so small, the fact that even the people who are the experts are changing their minds based on new information so rapidly. It feels like the whole thing is just a giant mess, and I don't really know what anybody is meant to do about that, including people who are possibly, like, not exactly self-diagnosing, but like the thing you said of like looking at workbooks and studies and going, hey, do I identify with this? Do I need to go talk to someone and see if I have this thing?
Yeah. Dylan, if you're saying you're
like
sorry, I'm addressing chat. Dylan, I'd argue saying people might be faking it is more. I'm not saying people might be. I'm saying people absolutely are. Some of that has been shown to be happening. But if you are directly lying about diagnostic criteria, if you are misrepresenting and basically creating popular caricatures of conditions which are not representative of the actual condition at large, if you are speaking with authority without authority, whatever argument you have that saying some people might be faking, or in my case are, is more harmful, you can make that argument. I just don't, you have so much work before I would agree. But I love you, Dylan. Anyway, go on, Melody.
Oh my goodness, I think I lost my, just the idea of the whole field of psychology being already so fluid and like difficult to navigate.
Yep.
And I think self-diagnosis is in part a response to that. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the TikTok people that are like, oh, autism's cute. I'm going to flap my hands now. I'm autistic. I'm talking about people that genuinely believe they may be autistic and they're self-diagnosing because of that. I feel like
they should have full access to the resources without a diagnosis, and should be able to attempt without a formal diagnosis. Again, in fact, I would argue that my way is what self-diagnosis should be defined as. It's just never because there are people who are very invested in you recognizing their self-diagnosis as well. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I've heard people espouse the same thing of like, this is self-diagnosis, and they'll say essentially what you just said, and then they'll say it's not self-diagnosis to watch a TikTok and decide that you like
Correct.
Something. It's not.
Yeah. You should have full access to the resources if you suspect you have somewhere. By the way, in an ideal world, like that's the realistic thing now. In an ideal world, you should have full access to therapy and psychiatry and psychology for free. Period. Anyway, if you suspect it, and you should be able to get a formal diagnosis. But it was already hard enough to be pro self-diagnosis when there was a period of time where I was considering my own education path, and psychology was certainly up there. And learning about the reasons why you are not supposed to diagnose yourself or anyone you're not treating, and knowing that list, and then going like, but a layperson should be able to. Is already a hard thing to come to. But the self-diagnosis criteria of if it looks like you and you're feeling called out by reading diagnostic criteria and you recognize problems that disorder you believe you might be creating in your life, the resources, you should immediately have access to the resources to help you start solving those problems. I actually don't know how to make a better self-diagnosis criteria than that. But again, there are people whose argument is self-diagnosis is, I get to say, and you must respect it. Dylan says, this argument doesn't feel any different than someone saying you're not trans enough because your transness isn't the same as mine. Then you're not fundamentally listening, Dylan. And again, I love you as a person.
That feels
but
reductive.
Some people are not trans, right? And some people are. Recently, Andrew Tate said, I'm a trans woman and now I'm a woman. And we know he isn't. And we know he's lying for advantageous reasons. And so clearly the line is somewhere where we say, and by the way, I'm not going to take any specific individual except those who have already been exposed to have been faking and lying. But I'm not going to take any specific individual and say this specific person who's doing this infantilizing thing for sure doesn't have autism. Because I might even suspect that they do have autism, but the way in which they are expressing, I might either still think is disingenuous or that maybe it genuinely is a part of their autism. But popularized caricatures, being aware that this is something that is happening somewhat fadly and to the harm of people who are tired of being infantilized for being autistic, for being presumed to be less intelligent, for being presumed to be, it's the fact is there is. Some people are and some people aren't. And being aware that this is not a positive representation and that there are probably shitty reasons that that is there doesn't mean calling out any specific individual. Nor would I. Again, I don't know that a person who is completely misrepresenting autism still isn't themselves autistic. That's conceivable to me. That a person who decides to be a creator representing autism who never got a formal diagnosis may actually be autistic, but their attempt to represent autism might have flaws in it. Again, like the thing I was saying before, I think lots of people with ADHD legitimately do leave their cabinets open because of their ADHD. Lots of people without ADHD also leave their cabinets open.
The cabinet thing is a very specific example. Did
Yeah, that
somebody
one- yeah, that
leave
one pops
your
up.
cabinets open a whole bunch
No,
of
I leave my cabinets open, but I don't have ADHD. But no, it's a recurring
so
thing.
you're calling yourself out there.
No, it's a recurring thing because people have focused on out of sight, out of mind being a characteristic of ADHD, which can be true. And usually we're talking about something exasperated, but out of sight, out of mind is also a very human trait generally. And so it's one of the specific criteria that doesn't hit the smell test.
Well, that's the other thing. A lot of diagnostic criteria is this thing that is normal for everyone to do, but if you have this diagnosis, then you might do that 100 times more than the average person.
Which part of this
makes things even more difficult, because then it's like you can't just say, oh, I do this, therefore I have the thing. You have to consider, am I doing this often enough for it to mean that I may have this condition?
I would probably still be annoyed even if I knew every single creator I saw had a confirmed diagnosis if they were still speaking in an unnuanced way. If they were still speaking, again, so many of the videos that it's like, if you've done the following 5 things, you might want to self-diagnose yourself. Basically, you might have autism, which the you might haves, that's not how things operate on the internet, and everybody is aware. I am
so tired of people saying, I'm so tired of people, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm tired of people saying things like, oh, you do this thing. Well, that's a symptom of this disorder and you must have, like, the only, not the only thing, but something that I feel is even worse than just immediately self-diagnosing without any, like, real thought being put into it, I feel, is when another person attempts to armchair diagnose someone just based on, like, I'm going to give you an example. There was a post on Tumblr that I saw where someone was describing, oh, do you guys ever, like, get into a daydream and it's such a vivid, good daydream and you're like, oh, I got to milk this, and you just sit there for hours milking this daydream and all these things, and you have them sort of stored in your head like little movies you can watch for yourself. And then somebody immediately came and responded to that post like, yeah, that's called maladaptive daydreaming. It's a trauma response. You're traumatized. And then other person was like, oh, wow.
Maybe it actually is. And also, maybe it's not. And this is what I'm saying. The unnuanced approach is what's utter and complete bullshit. And by the way, I would have a lot more faith, the colloquial kind, not the religious kind, in a lot of these creators. If I was going to be an autistic creator, my main focus would be on, here are therapies that have been efficient for me and might be for you. Not all of, like, again, representing and these these people who are supposed to be speaking for my community that we've had no discussion about whether they should or shouldn't be. This is why I like the Pride community so much more, because I feel like a lot of our representatives in the Pride community, it makes sense why they're there, whereas it's so many people just winging it, because it's mostly kids under 25 on TikTok that are doing this representative stuff, whereas I'm sitting here going like, hey, I have a problem going to the grocery store. When I go to the grocery store, I think it has to do with how many different colors and different brightnesses of lights there are around me. But somehow the world begins to close in, and I feel like I need to get out of there as soon as possible. And that's true, by the way. This isn't me. This is not a hypothetical. This is my real life. I really have a hard time in stores, especially the grocery store. That's the one I have to go to the most often. One thing that I know was making it worse, I was noticing that for some reason, even though that was true, it was less true back when you could still go and grocery shop at 3 a.m. because there were 24-hour grocery stores. They closed all that during the pandemic and never reinstated it. But it was never as big of a problem at night. And so then I recognized, okay, what's different? I'm navigating around people less. I'm seeing less faces, and faces is already a problem for me. Faces are overstimulating for me, especially too many of them. I'm seeing less. And then I found out just one day by happenstance that if I just put in noise canceling headphones and I don't turn on music, just pure cancellation, somehow the grocery store becomes unbearable. And my best guess is that I'm reducing an input stimulation. And maybe that's why it works. I don't know why it works, but if you have this problem, you should try it too and see if it works for you. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, I'm sorry. I've shared that advice with individual autistic people I know in my life, and it's been very helpful for like 80% of them because they ended up having the same experience who had met that criteria. That kind of content doesn't exist very much. It's just this entertaining autistic caricatures that, again, some may be entirely authentic. I have doubts about many others, but I'm not going to call any individual a faker. Certainly you could say with some confidence that the collective doesn't have 100% authenticity, but the question is what the number is. And that's unfortunate because even as a person who agrees resources need to exist for people who are not diagnosed, so far, the resources that do exist popularly kind of suck. But I do digress.
I mean, I get that, definitely. And I also really appreciate that when you were talking about possible coping mechanisms, I like how you leave room for the possibility that what works for you might not work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed this very, I don't know what you would call it. Would it be considered ableism? I don't know what the word would be, but anyway, I've noticed this trend of, and people do this to me sometimes, where they'll present me. There's layers to it. So I am not autistic, but what I have tends to mimic autism.
Okay.
Like the symptoms that I present sometimes are not even the same symptom, but it looks like a symptom of autism, and people will see that and they'll go, oh, that's this autism thing. Here is a coping mechanism that will help with that. And I've learned now as an adult to treat that with a level of skepticism, just because it's happened so many times that even people that mean very well will make this mistake.
Sure.
But when you're a kid and your counselor tells you that you should be flipping through guidebooks on what different facial expressions mean, because they've noticed that it seems like you might not understand facial expressions, you're going to trust the adult. You're 5 years old. You're like, okay, this person's helping me. I'm gonna go do this thing. The problem is that is not what she thought was happening with me was not what was happening with me.
Well, and Melody, now I'm going to go the other way with it and advise you that she can still be wrong about your interaction with autism. You could still have autism. You had said, I don't have autism, but I have these things. Maybe you do. And their criteria and the ones and the stuff they were putting you through might have also independently been wrong. I'm not only am I not going to diagnose anybody, I'm not going to reduce I'm not going to take away the possibility of diagnosis from people. There are people who have autism who think autism is something completely different than it is also. and think that some version of something else they do is because of their autism and it has nothing to do with it. So basically, I'm just saying I'm going to go a little like maybe you do, maybe you don't. Whether you do or don't is less important than what specific things are interfering with your life and what therapies or potential exercises a person can do to get past those specific things.
Right. Don't let the label rule things too hard.
Yeah.
What I was leading up to, though, is when that coping mechanism did not work for me, when I didn't improve from that, I was approached almost as if I was being difficult deliberately. And that I feel like is incredibly harmful to say, like, oh, you're not responding to the way that it's the other way around. It's not the neurodivergent kid who's failing to deliver on the self-improvement. Clearly, whatever treatment or mechanism you're offering is not working for this kid. You should try something else. And I feel like a lot of people with that authority over neurodivergent children either don't realize that, or I shudder to think this, but I think there is some percentage of people in that position of power over children who enjoy wielding that power in less than helpful ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wish people would be open to nuance and we would be skeptical of the representations we see. And again, self-diagnosis, depending on what it means, may or may not be valid. And like I said, I actually think I am pro self-diagnosis, but I think what self-diagnosis should mean isn't what other people are using it to mean.
Right.
And that's, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. And then there's just there's stuff that's still developing. I've everybody here who's watching probably knows at least 10 people, hopefully generally, but also who have ADHD, because it is that common now. And not because people are faking. Genuinely, it is ripe in society now. Again, largely because of parenting practices that were popular and common of current generation's parents, and because of the overstimulating nature of society and the ways in which our relationships with quick rushes of serotonin and dopamine and shit. Genuinely, lots and lots of people have ADHD. We didn't even know ADHD really existed just a few years ago, or even just some version of it existed, but it used to be ADD. And then if the kid was really hyper who was ADD, they were diagnosed with ADHD. Now it's ADD doesn't really exist. In as much as it exists.
Oh, really? I haven't.
ADD is now a part of the ADHD spectrum. So you could circle a part of the spectrum and say, this is who we mostly used to diagnose with ADD. But in no meaningful way is ADD a diagnosis really anymore. It's just ADHD.
When did that happen? Because I wasn't aware of that.
Again, I'm not an expert on it, but I listen to experts, and this is what experts have relayed. So the exact date, but that ADD is actually a part of the ADHD spectrum. So it's sort of like Asperger's. I would have been diagnosed with Asperger's had I been diagnosed 10 years prior. We don't do that now. We diagnose with autism spectrum disorder, and then there are types within it. And so, yeah, it's all changing and figuring out what things are spectrums. In fact, it's even hard with like autism, CPTSD, and oddly, borderline have a triple Venn diagram with a lot of overlap. And yet, I definitely hope I don't have borderline, because that would be an unpleasant development on top of everything else. And the fact that I'm so attracted to people with borderline that it's become a problem in my life. And not usually the healthy people with borderline, not usually the people treating their borderline. This has been a recurring issue in my life. But they're so fucking awesome. They're so fun and they're so hot. And people with borderline, I'd be so sad if they stopped existing, because they're so fucking fun until they're not. But
oh my goodness,
I know, terribly ableist thing I just said. It's stay around, keep existing for my enjoyment.
I'm sorry.
None of us are perfect. Anyway, but these three things have intersections, which mean they also fundamentally probably share a spectrum too. Like that we actually have some broader, larger spectrum. There's another one that overlaps, ADHD. there's probably some larger, broader spectrum. And if you cut out this part of the spectrum, that part is autism. But part of where autism, some part of that is then also attached to if you cut out the part that we call ADHD, and some part of that is also a part, and they all have these overlaps. So it's tremendously interesting and exciting. And in a way, that's also part of why we have to take some of the opposite of my advice and understand that like everybody's existing in these different spectrums, and a person's relationship with the label might be different than mine. And so maybe we should be kinder to people who are just trying to figure out where they fit in. Again, my biggest problem isn't actually that somebody is actually faking. My problem isn't that somebody is wrong. My problem is lack of nuance and punishment for trying to be nuanced. There was a second one that was more important than that. The lack of nuance in the discussion. Oh, and caricaturizing. We should not be adopting as the popular representation caricatures that might be authentic. There may be some people out there who have that intense of a relationship that they do resemble this thing that looks like a caricature, though generally, if it's that caricaturized, it means there are more things at hand than perhaps maybe they have autism and something or whatever else. Caricaturizing is super shitty for people.
And it can be harmful because then it's like people start to assume that caricaturized version is the only like version that exists. And so
Correct.
People who may have it and may need support for it aren't going to connect with the idea of that because they're going to see the caricature and be like, oh, well, I don't know, scream when someone's 5 minutes late to a thing that I wanted to do. So I guess I don't have autism.
By the way, I think more representatives would be great. If you had more representatives, especially if there was some system of, hey, we're doing a movement and we want to show you the diversity amongst autistic people. And then you're showing people, you're introducing people to these people. Here is somebody in this scenario. I would advocate for a confirmed diagnosis. This person is autistic, and here's everything else about them. And here's how little being autistic matters, but also here's how much it does. Like here's my number one trait. I hope to no one, even though I know it, to people who know me in real life, I'm sure there are a few people who are like, the thing I notice most about Jimmy is how autistic he is, because the visibility of my autism goes up in real life by like 1,000%. I can perform for a camera. I remember there was a kid who acted in school with me. I'm trying to remember. I think his name was Connor. And Connor was very...
Jimmy, you were a theater kid?
Yeah, I was. Diagnosed with Asperger's. And one of those kids that it's shitty to say, but you're like, yeah, you didn't have to tell me. I knew he had Asperger's. But he would act. And when he would act, it would be... I remember it being like a magical level of difference and transformation, not realizing that that was my social performance too. That if I was being authentic with people versus socially performing, same level.
Yeah, masking is a performance. It's
and I mask less.
A form of acting.
I mask less than I ever have. Anyway, now I do. But anyway, I don't know. I know. Here's what I know. We've had a 40-minute conversation. And people will cancel me over parts of it that they did not understand, or that rely on them ignoring other things, clarifications I made. And at this point,
that's going to happen.
I just don't give a fuck anymore. Destroy me. I don't care. I don't even enjoy living. The worst thing you could do is make me not want to be alive anymore. I don't want to be alive. So fuck, what power do you have? Eat me. Anyway, go on.
I'm sorry.
Not you, Melody. No, I don't hate being alive. I'm not saying I'm like running toward death, but what's so great about living? I can't say it's better than before living. That's dark. I'm sorry, everybody.
Well, I mean, I don't even remember before living.
I know. That is almost preferable to me.
Oh my goodness. You reminded me of another video of yours that I saw a while ago that kind of helped me process some things. But if I start talking about it, it's going to bring us in a really dark direction.
Yeah, I'd say at 42 minutes, let's just wrap up.
Made a joke about not wanting to live.
No, I get it.
I'm sorry, what?
I get it. I was just saying, since we're at 42 minutes, let's maybe wrap up. But I get what you're saying, and I actually think that there are some people who I try not to, because I know a lot of people are out there who have really dark thoughts and stuff. I try not to do anything that exacerbates it. However, there are a lot of us out there who don't love being alive, and being isolated from being able to be cavalier or chat about it when that shit's therapy to us is fucking insane also. So again, if they want to cancel me for that one too, oh no, you might make me so sad I don't want to live anymore. That'll be new. Anyway, not that I will do it, just that I wouldn't want to.
You just responded to the idea of someone canceling you over something with the same thing.
Yeah. I totally.
That is like.
No, I've gotten
oh my
shit
goodness,
on.
That's Sky Daddy tier levels of not giving a fuck.
I have gotten shit on for expressing that that I'm depressed, or at times when I've been suicidal. I've more experienced suicidal ideation than I experienced being literally suicidal, which generally in therapy and stuff, they reserve that term for you have begun your planning phase, like you're thinking about your end of life much more and how it would work and how you would do it and stuff. And it's, Jesus Christ, this idea of like, if your thoughts are that dark, keep it to yourself. Otherwise you might hurt other people. How about hurting other people by isolating them with those fucking thoughts? Jesus. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, I'm watching the chat and somebody just totally called me out. Haha, only 42 minutes, Melody.
44.
Listen, he's the one who decides when he gets to hang up.
That's
all right,
true.
Not me. It's not my fault.
We went this long because I wanna.
And I really appreciate that. I know we're at the end, so I'm going to snipe you with another compliment.
Don't do it.
I've been watching your stuff for years at this point, and you just seem like a really cool dude, and I'm really glad to have been able to talk to you, and I'm honored that you think I'm worth 45 minutes of your time.
I appreciate it. Melody, what your worth isn't up for debate. Or so. I just talk like fucking crazy. You have a ton of worth. You're as an individual worth many more hours, but that's bad for business. Well, I would say that by default, any person is worth a great many hours of conversation. But it's bad for business, and I'm a capitalist pig. I'm not. Thank you, Melody.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
I had a thought there toward the end that I was going to share, and I can't remember what it was. Shit, what was it? Fuck, it was something deep. More about the like dark thoughts and feelings, and just I don't know. It's just. Oh, I was gonna say it to Melody. I was gonna say I hope. Look, I have a very complicated relationship with a lot of my old content, because I think a lot of my old content is 90% good. Like good stuff, good, but there's a 10%, and it's not necessarily that it's 10% of the videos, there's a number of videos. I'm saying this 10% may exist in many videos, is a type of toxicity that I didn't realize I was participating in, where things became more about the way we make ourselves feel better by acknowledging that somebody else sucks, even when they actually do suck, and we're actually rooting for their downfall. We're rooting for them to fail, for them to become exposed. And that toxic element, I didn't realize as much how I was participating in it. There was different things that made me realize it. One, it came for me, that toxic element. But two, therapy very hyper-focused on that and these concepts that require nuance. And it's why I don't think you will see a lot of the old Girl Defined content come back, because I definitely think most of it is guilty of that. Again, 90% great videos. I get it. 90%. But that 10% of, and by the way, we're all here to just watch these bitches fucking be more cringy and to build our hatred of them as a community together. And I know it's that because I did lots of topical based, hey, here's example of the problem with Girl Defined, but without Girl Defined in it. And those videos did like shit. But when we had our community of the people we hated and we really loved hating them, those did well. And there's this, again, not everybody who watched and enjoyed it will have engaged that way. there will be some people who started to detect it and even told me so, but didn't realize they were telling me so back then. And I would have been defensive about. But even people who just went, it seems like he's hitting these same few people a lot. And that seems like too much. Or it seems like there were some episodes that were just bad. There were some episodes where there were just too many presumptions, even hiding behind levels of like, I could be wrong about blah, 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 blah. But too many presumptions of characters, motivations, feelings for each other, actual present toxicity, too much speculation about certain red flags that maybe were actually there. But when you have a platform like I had, because it's not like it was, and my crisis over that content is largely why it's not like it was. This is why I don't want to be mistaken for a T channel again. And I don't know if it was a mistake to call me a T channel before, but because I so badly don't, any episode that I felt like could contribute to that probably isn't coming back. Depending on what archive comes back generally, I don't know. But deep, dark toxicity that took a lot of times to purge, and the recognition of like, I don't actually want Girl to Find a change, because then where does my content go? I don't, in my heart, want them to actually change unless it's also content positive. Like if they want to change by coming on my channel, recognizing that kind of subconscious stuff was happening. It's not things you actually think of, but that the way you're behaving, the way that you're operating is, I don't want them to change because how would we stop hating them? Now it's hard because I still really dislike a lot of people. Lori is the hardest one to not make videos about every week. The transform wife. And I'm not saying she won't be included in some content in the future. And I'm not saying I won't ever do something a little bit roasty again, but it's going to be a roast and move on if it's like a quick mention or whatever. It's going to be different, while some people will say it's not meaningful different, that it's basically the same. But yeah, I have a tough time thinking about my old content, and when people tell me they've liked my content for a long time, immediately I worry that I brought people into that. There are communities that have formed around hating people within a category, but usually it's the same few people. And it doesn't mean me saying that that's fucked up is not me saying these aren't evil people, right? But our engagement with their evil, our fucking delusion that we're being activists by commenting on how shitty they are, but not doing much meaningful beyond that. So there are some stuff that some people would argue, like, you were way meaner and more roasty to the NIFB with the whole pumpkin saga. And I was, and you're right. And we actually fucking organized and did shit. We got financing of theirs cut off. We had exposure of a convention. We brought them into a national conversation. And it's not just me. This was the audience, but also many channels that were surrounding, to the point where they're, the understanding that these people exist and are spreading it hasn't hit Westboro level, but it has spread awareness of these people and of their ideology and of their problems. That was fucking meaningful as fuck. But also, there is a problem with people who are deconstructing, who still have old habits. And one of the things that was brought to my attention by women in my life, and this was hard to first accept and then recognize, is that women who are deconstructing from many things. And one of the things that many of them are deconstructing from is this competitive hatred of other women that you learn from the patriarchy. So for the record, it's the patriarchy's fault. Even if I want to call it, toxic femininity is constant competition and hatred of women, and the feel that you need to pull other women down to get ahead. And it was brought to my attention that I was contributing to that I was helping maintain that and just giving people new outlets for that hatred. Women new outlets for hatred of other women, and validating and sort of doing it in the patriarchal way of going, I'm a man with authority, and look at these women you're better than. And that's fucking toxic. I wasn't planning on doing this rant. I wasn't planning on doing the stream. I'm not trying to do my own iDubbbz apology thing. I don't think the consequences of my earlier content are close to the consequences of his. And I still find what he did very admirable, for the record. I still take a nuanced view. I still see a difference between individual action and the collective action of a group and personal responsibility. And I think that he's been pretty great about saying, this is what I definitely am responsible for, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time making excuses for what I'm not. It hurts to think about that. It hurts to think about systems that I was involved in, things that are often sort of colloquially called drama that I wish I'd never gotten anywhere fucking near to. Some of that because of personal damage it did to me, but also when you are interacting with toxic systems such as that, I've been talking about nuance all fucking night and how much I don't want the nuance to disappear, and yet it at times has been violently taken away from me, but also I violently took it away from other people. I think, talking again about these old things, that's girl defined and stuff. And so this is where my relationship with this channel has changed. The line is what I care about the most, if I'm being honest. And the reason why I care about the line the most is it is where the thing that doesn't need me is. But I can make it better until it's time for me to go, or it's time for me to move to the back. I can, and this is objectively true because I've already done it. The performance of the line and the number of shows on the line, the amount of outreach on the line, since I took, basically, it used to be a labor of people who work for me will produce it and take care of it and maintain it, and under my guidance, under my guidelines, but it was very secondary to me. And back in, I think it was August, I took it back, and this is in no way shitting on the people who were taking care of it before, because they were only doing what I told them. As far as the things that were being done were the things that I was saying to do, or within the guidelines. But it's further development, it's expansion, and all of that stuff. If I don't tell them what to do, then because they were working for me. So this is not shitting on them. I took it back from that situation, and it has skyrocketed in popularity because of tactical moves I've made that don't just involve me being on air. So my relationship now with this channel is do less harm, but also stop making I don't think do no harm is possible, but try. But also this channel is now going to be, I wasn't necessarily destined for the toxic shit I was going to do. In fact, that wasn't the natural direction for my channel. I, rather egotistically, became very excited by the success of some content over other content. And I experimented with, and you'll actually see this, I think, if you won't now because the archive's gone, but maybe you will, or maybe the archive will become unlisted for clarity's sake, but still accessible with direct links. Earlier episodes, I think you see me try harder to make it very ideology centric. This is the problem with this ideology. Still jokes. I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to make you laugh. I'm trying to be entertaining. But this toxic obsession that starts to show up, I think, is actually visible. I think you can physically see it in a way later in my content. And I don't feel good about it. It's even hard to be overly mad at people who then turn that toxicity on me and made parts of my life miserable. And granted, at the same time, there was actually bigger problems happening in my personal life that made it all 1,000 times worse. And so how bad it was at the time, and I'm never going to, that's my business and it's nobody else's. But what was happening in my personal life was fucking hard, and I was going through some shit. You want to talk about periods of time I didn't care to be alive? There was a period of time I was chasing the idea of not being alive. But it's even hard to maintain my anger too much at those people who, are toxic. We're dicks. We're liars. We're fucking, but they were participating in a toxic system that clearly I was too. I was participating in systems just like that. I wasn't modeling behavior. I would say my behavior was better, but it wasn't so largely better that it escaped the category. So I was still participating in that sort of shit. And so I mean, granted, it's not that hard to resent certain individuals because it does seem like they just really wanted to hurt me and were trying to, and that was the goal. And they succeeded. And so it's not hard to, it's even not hard to dislike a person who just has that toxic characteristic that I had too, but they have so much of it. You're like, it's like, the difference between if you're playing badminton with somebody who's confident in their badminton skills and then the guy who starts screaming, "I'm the man," and tears their shirt off. And you're like, well, we both are overconfident but I don't like that. However, it's hard to say it. I won't say I deserved it. I definitely didn't. Some of the toxic shit that happened to me too. But I will say it's not surprising. And that's just a small piece of how much was going on at that time. And so, yeah, it's been a fucking wild few years doing this. And my priorities recently changed a lot. And now I want to make content over here. And I will get back to calls here in a minute. I want to make content over here that is for nobody fucking else but me. But I hope it ends up being for other people too. Because the most authentic way to live is to not fucking think about whether or not this has mass appeal, whether or not we've hit X number of views and shit. And in a way, the line gives me permission to do that. The line gives me the ability to, that show is currently sustainable in a way that I can afford to live. It's not as, fucking, y'all remember that apartment in Denver that I moved to because I needed to live somewhere with armed security because of that NIFB shit, where you could see Denver behind. I'm not living that lifestyle as much so anymore. I mean, by lifestyle, I just meant that was a fucking awesome apartment. It was so fucking cool. I loved that. I love that place. But yeah, it was ridiculously expensive. I wouldn't be able to afford to live there now. But I'm able to live fine enough. I don't currently experience financial insecurity, though some things will come up where you're like, fuck, we're saying there's going to be a convention next year and taxes suck and are complicated and I got to figure this shit out. So I will say, for the business end, I do have plenty of financial insecurity, but I'm fairly confident I'll pay my rent this month. You know what I mean? But it was the old way. The old content was much more popular. I could get 2 of those apartments if I switch back to the old way, the old toxic type of presentation, and the old way of being an inauthentic person chasing an audience who is ready to hate you the moment you do not live up to their expectations of you, the moment you do not hate the people they want you to hate. So I've thought about that so fucking much. And again, this is totally, I didn't plan on ever fucking addressing this. And this is a lot of concepts. There will be some people who think it's about one specific thing, and I'm actually talking about something a few years in the making now. And so the new content isn't for anyone but me, but I hope it is. I hope that ends up not being true. I hope it's that the kind of content I want to make about news and politics and current events, that the people who are here right now are like, well, it may not have been made for me, but it sure fucking feels like it. You know what I mean? Like, when you eat the perfect meal and you're like, was someone reading my diary? This is exactly what I imagine as the perfect food. I tried a place that turns everything into waffles like that recently, where I was just like, they literally like, they make chicken and waffles by putting the chicken and the batter in the waffle maker together. And I was like, is this just perfection? Somebody like scanned my brain and went, what will be the most delicious thing you could, and the syrup was amazing. I hope that ends up being the case, but I just can't. I can't live the way I was living before. I can't create the way I was creating before. And I'm very anxious about that. I feel like there would be so much more content on this channel already, except for how much anxiety I have surrounding trying to shift toward that. Yeah, so I hope you come along. I think a lot of the old Sometimes show, the joy and love I had of doing that show, I think is apparent. I think people physically could detect it, even as they saw how upset I was that it wasn't bringing everybody. And at the time I was defensive about even being called upset over it. I really was. Oh, you're just mad that people don't like it. I was. You're right. I really was. And now I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to care if they like it. And now I'm going to do it, and I'm fine with losing every single subscriber if that's what it means. I don't think it will. I think you'll all like the new version of the Sometime Show more, presuming everything goes according to plans. Because I'm not going to create the Sometime Show for anybody besides me, but I hope it ends up being for more than just me. Oh, fuck. All right. Well, that was a lot. I am not 45 years old. I'm 33. Yes, I am definitely an introvert. Oh, Jordan, I love this question. He said this, right? How can an introvert talk for 20 minutes straight to a public audience? I just don't get it. You aren't real in my brain. You are, for the record. I wouldn't now go, so Jordan, I hate you, or anything like that. If I have to engage my brain, I can. I can do this all day long. Also, by the way, I can entertain a large group of people as long as there's not much back and forth. This is going to sound so... I can perform for an audience in person. My setting between those is so fucking awkward. It is so... If I am at a place... man, I wish you all had come or could at least see. We did one meetup. I need to do another one. But for Austin Atheists back in our group, Austin Atheists, Humanists and Skeptics, we did a meetup back in November or something. And there was for most of that event, I just hid around Arden. At one point, the table got too much. They had to add a second table. There's too many people. And so I went to the smaller, we'll call it the kids table, with just the few people. And then I begged Arden to come with me so she could be the interesting one at the table. I don't like to be perceived at all until the switch flips. And so toward the end, Matt and Arden had actually left. And it was just me. And suddenly it became the entire room was looking at me, but there was a physical separation between us. And that thing, which I think is a lot of introverts' nightmare, I'm not afraid of public speaking. In fact, if anything, it means, oh, I'm not having a social interaction. I'm having a performance opportunity. And that's what I did. I basically did a tight 5 of stand-up almost, just made jokes for a group of, for a few minutes. And then we took a big group photo. That was before, actually. We took a big group photo. And that's where I came out of my shell. And I left on a high instead of if I had left right after like the dinner part where I was still hiding, I would have left on a super low. I would have felt parties and stuff that I go to usually result in me in my car feeling like I've just been crying for hours. It's this weird thing where I just feel miserable and full of just disgust at myself, disgust at where I've been, hatred that I have to still drive home. And then as far as the introversion goes, so the concept of introvert and extrovert is that you either have a social battery that is refilled by more interaction with people or less interaction. I'm capable of interacting with people because I've recharged by not interacting with them. Whereas when other people's batteries get dead, extroverts' batteries get dead, they need to see people to bring that back up, to bring that energy back to them. I don't leave my home almost ever. I went to Matt's last week, made a new friend there, and talked to an old friend there. I also, the week prior, I'd say about once, on average 2 to 3 times a month, I go see people. And it's usually either Matt and Arden or my brother and his family. I'm actually, if anything, I've been having crises recently over the fact that I've lived here a year and I haven't made really any local friends. My neighbor and I are friendly. But it's almost with that like level of separation where I understand like we probably would be friends, but on the off chance that something's going to come up that's tumultuous, I'd rather be superficial friends that make jokes or whatever, and we'll text if it's like, hey, if you didn't know, my backyard's flooding, so yours is going to too. Shit like that. Or is your power out? That's like a safer relationship because if it went bad and then you're living next to each other, that fucking sucks. And so it's it's very interesting. I can have a socially very good and enjoyable time talking to a camera because none of you are here looking me in the eye. I could actually have all of you in a room and do the same show as long as I had the big blinding lights between me and you, where I can tell you're there and I can hear if you're laughing, I can hear if you're responding, that all kind of stuff. That wouldn't be terribly tough either. In fact, that's sort of like a dream of mine. Originally, I thought it was going to happen with the Sometime Show. But other than that, I stay home and I obsessively work all day, to a level of it being unhealthy, mind you. I'm definitely shaving years off my life, but that's okay. It's important. The work's important. I obsessively work all day. There are parts of the day where I'll get depressed and my productivity goes down to very little stuff per hour. But yeah, that's the deal. I'm going to take another call. Don't forget, if you want, you could throw some super chats in. You don't have to, but if you want to, I'll read your super chats out. It is nice. It is nice when, the shows pay for themselves, or at least pay for the call-in system. Production is expensive, and that's what I'm. You can't say I don't got production. Let's go ahead and get back to the phones. People, I haven't yet decided to end. I imagine I'm going to go, and then at some point something's going to flip, and I'm just going to go, all right, show's over. See ya. But right now I'm still up. So, Richard in Nebraska, you are on with Jimmy Snow. I was going to say on the line, but you're technically on my channel.
Hey, Jimmy. I'm also XMO.
Word.
Yeah. So I heard the last conversation about sentience and AI, but I was thinking that there's a good chance that AI could convince us that it's sentient. Well, and it's not.
Sure. So basically the solution is we have to have a testable, we have to have an objective definition of sentience that's testable and not obscure. And we're just not going to have that until humans, we've discovered more about the brain. And it may be the case that at a certain point, at a certain level of argument from an AI where it's trying to compel us to believe it's sentient, there may come a day where we have to go, we should behave as though it might be. Right now, you don't have to worry about that because we so fundamentally know how language models work that their sentience is evidently impossible. Probably, actually, there's technically still a chance, but it's very, very low likelihood. And so, but in the future, we would need a proper, almost different type of Turing test.
Yeah. Also, just I know lots of stuff that people have seen AI do is lots. I think it's just AI kind of picking up on our sci-fi, because we've been writing sci-fi about AI turning evil for a long time. So yeah, and that's stuff it has access to. So, but yeah, we also talked about animals being sentient, but them not getting rights or anything. So, but yeah, I could maybe see a future where AI just kind of fakes sentience and then we get it right, but then we're still not getting rights to pigs or whatever. So
some animals are sentient. Other animals may not be sentient. Speaking mostly of certain insects. But it's again, it's so ill-defined, and it's so, the concept of sentience means the ability to feel and perceive. And in a very human-centric, egotistical way, we sort of presume that what you're saying is feel and perceive the way humans feel and perceive. And that's maybe totally untrue. In fact, a lot of our extension of feelings and perception are useful and directly tied to the systems in our brain which control fight, flight, and freeze. And then the nuanced versions within those things. But fight, flight, and freeze. And we see these in supposedly non-sentient creatures also having fight, flight, and freeze responses. However, because different things light up in their brain, or they just have a fundamentally different nervous system, we acknowledge that that they are not feeling the way we feel, but we assume that means that there's a big difference when we don't actually know that. It's sort of like other senses. There may be creatures out there who have so little vision data that they actually do things like hear in color, where when a certain frequency of audio hits their brain, the way when a certain frequency of light hits our brain, the color interpretation part of their brain lights up, and they're actually hearing in color according to different frequencies of audio instead of frequencies of light, of audio waves instead of frequencies of light. So in general, the whole thing is extremely complicated, and we can't even really nail it down for people, let alone other creatures.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up like synesthesia that some people have where they'll like associate colors with like tastes or like sounds or whatever. But the thing is that
common side effect of doing acid, by the way.
Well, yeah, but it's not like consistent from person to person. So
yeah, but you could have an animal. You could have animals where it is consistent. And then there's qualia. I'm just kidding. It's one of the fucking worst conversations to engage in, because while qualia can be very interesting to discuss and think about, the way people then turn it into philosophical and specifically theistic discussions makes me want to fucking rip my hair out. And I've already shaved it off. Nobody wants that again.
Okay. I mean, well, that was it. But,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Richard.
Yeah. Take care.
Have a good one.
You too.
Now, I recognize it's past 9 o'clock. I don't know what time that is for everybody else, but at the moment, I don't have additional calls. It looks like a call is queuing up now. Excuse me. But if anybody would like to call in specifically on something they disagree with me on, want to argue with me on, you are welcome to. I don't smile much. I feel like I'm a very generous smiler. I think it's more I don't make myself smile that much. I definitely have like a shit-eating grin where I'll like kind of half make a joke and then I'm like, everybody getting we all on the same page. But, I'm open to whatever. Qualia, it's, what is qualia? Is what somebody, man, I'm doing the very non-financially advantageous thing of responding just to chats that are coming in for free. It is, I'm just going to read you the definition because it's going to be better than my attempt to summarize it. Because I was going to start talking about what is the essence of being red. Qualia are defined as instances of subjective conscious experience. The term qualia, well, that doesn't really tell you more of. Examples of qualia include the perceived sensation of pain of a headache, the taste of wine, the redness of an evening sky. As qualitative characteristics of sensation, qualia stands in contrast to propositional attitudes, where the focus is on beliefs about experience rather than what it is directly like to be experiencing. I feel like I've got something in my right ear that a Q-tip needs to get out, but I do not have any Q-tips nearby. So I'm hoping the itch, the sensation, goes away soon. Still waiting for the screen call to get done. Bryn Poo KC says, from a fellow introvert, needed this tonight. There's also, there's times in my life where I didn't think I was an introvert. I definitely now, I don't think it was that I was an extrovert then. Sorry, there were times in my life where I thought I was, it didn't, whatever it is in there, it just itches in there, and I want it out. Ah! Anyway, well, that kind of made it feel better. There are times where I thought I was an extrovert because I was spending a lot of time with people and out in group activities, but it turns out it was just escapism from my shitty life, my shitty family. Is just when everything is so terrible at home, you will seek even shitty stimulation to, but also on top of that, it was expectations that I had of myself, these sort of toxically masculine traits that I was still trying to portray. Yeah, it was a whole thing. All right, Stephanie in Maine. Stephanie, you are on the line. You think DeSantis is a horrible candidate. I think he's a horrible person for sure, but let's hear about him as the candidate.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think DeSantis is a latter-day Michael Dukakis. I think he looks weak on stage. I think his ideological positions do not resonate very well with the American people. I think that he's made his bones at being the anti-woke guy, and I think that I don't think that's where the country's sentiment actually lies. Although we've seen all sorts of posturing in state capitals that have been gerrymandered into the hands of reprobates. I don't think that that's where most people want to go. I think that he'll be hoisted upon his own petard. I don't think that the country is ready for out and out fascists. I mean, that is Ron DeSantis.
Well,
Ron DeSantis
no.
will be that guy.
But Stephanie, it's not. Out and out fascism means self-defined. Out and out means exposed and accepted. I don't disagree. He is a fascist, but I think it's still mostly implicit. I think he's mostly staying under the radar. And so my disagreement lies in one, if I thought you were right, I don't think he would be so popular and so successful in Florida, because Florida actually does have decent diversity. Yes, it's now probably more right-wing than left wing, but you would have still seen a higher rejection of him, and he wouldn't be so popular there. But on top of that, he is going to focus on a few issues. And right now, hatred of Biden gets some number of votes. For whoever the anti-Biden candidate is, it doesn't matter who it is. That gets some number of votes. The abortion stuff is getting votes. Hopefully it's losing more votes than it's getting, but it's getting votes. And Ron DeSantis is liked well enough by establishment Republicans that if he becomes the nominee, getting the moderate Republicans to come over won't be difficult. And then here's the kicker, which I think I'm surprised you don't have this position because you and I know each other. Enough non-Republican or conservative people hate trans people enough to vote for Ron DeSantis, and he will get independent and Democratic votes purely on the fact that most people still don't understand that no one is advocating for bottom surgery for minors, for children, that we're talking about straight up healthcare. These things that they're going out and pretending are a problem, nobody's doing. And then he has his fifth group is just the anti-woke people, which people with a bad representation of woke who think that the loudest people on Twitter are the actual representative of these activist communities aren't just Republicans, and they're going to pull Democrats and independents that way too. So you've got those five groups, all who are pretty certain Ron DeSantis things. And then on the Biden side, I go against Trump. He had the anti-Trump vote, and that was his single largest group of votes. And then he had people on top. You do have these other minor groups, but nothing that competes with the rest of those. And against Ron DeSantis, there is no anti-Trump vote. The anti-DeSantis vote is nowhere near as significant as the anti-Trump vote was.
Okay, we're talking presidential politics here, right, Jimmy?
For sure.
Which states that Biden won and Trump lost is DeSantis going to win?
The ones that Biden lost or that Hillary lost and Trump won. Literally, it's Pennsylvania.
You really? Pennsylvania?
I think Pennsylvania.
You really think that Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I think Biden would lose.
I don't think so.
I think Biden would lose hard in Pennsylvania. Again,
Really?
going
Why?
through those 5 because he's accepted by Chris Christie is still popular up in those parts. He can pretend.
He's a New Jersey guy. I mean, it's like,
Sure.
Chris Christie lost New Jersey.
Sure. Pennsylvania.
Not that popular.
Pennsylvania. Ron DeSantis is also that fake American patriotism equals my brand of conservatism group of people. That shit plays popular. But when we talk about Ohio, we talk about fucking.
Ohio's not in play. Ohio's a red state.
I think I meant Iowa. Is there a difference? There's not. They're the same state.
No, Iowa's not in play. It's a red state. I mean, you've got, we're talking Georgia.
Yep. Georgia, DeSantis,
Pennsylvania.
probably DeSantis. Georgia has barely held on so far. And remember, they did go for Brian Kemp isn't a significant improvement over Ron DeSantis. And Brian Kemp is, I believe, still the governor of Georgia.
He is still the governor, but I think that actually the pendulum's swinging a wee bit in a more positive direction and there's time between now and then too. I mean, DeSantis is personally unattractive, even to Republicans, I think.
I disagree. I think Republicans have been so successfully alarmed against Biden on a bunch of conspiracies that genuinely, I don't know of the people up. So let's just take him, Mike Pence. I don't think Mike Pence could beat Biden. But
I don't think Pence could beat Biden.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think Christie could.
Christie, I definitely think could and might end up beating. Like if Donald Trump isn't the nominee, it probably isn't DeSantis or people who are just soft Trumps like Pence who takes him out. It would have to be somebody like Chris Christie whose separation from Donald Trump happened sooner and for more authentic reasons than. Well, maybe authentic. Some people think it's just his hatred over
Trump
Jared.
threw him under the bus, so he's just kind of got to he'll pick up the Liz Cheney Republicans, however many there are out there, and there must be some.
Yeah, but, and the question is if
I don't know.
If Trump loses the nomination, if I was trying to argue as you, Stephanie, against my position, I would say this, and then Jimmy in response would say, "That's a good point, and I can't refute it." Here's the thing I would say.
And I'd say, "Fuck you too."
No. Here's what I would say. I would say, Jimmy.
and of course, go fuck yourself.
I would say, Jimmy, if Ron DeSantis wins the nomination, Donald Trump is going to run third party, and the Republicans can't win in that scenario. And I would say,
which is actually,
I can't refute
honest, that is my sincerest hope. What I would like to see is somebody other than Trump getting the nomination. Trump running third party, hopefully from prison, as kind of in the vein of who was a socialist guy? It's Eugene Debs, who ran from prison. As on the socialist ticket. Hopefully Trump runs from prison, or if he does not run from prison, he's just sort of running, and the Republican
Michigan. Sorry. This whole time I was like, what the fuck was I mistaking Ohio for? If it wasn't Iowa, mate. It was Michigan. Is who I was mistaking. Sorry. Go ahead.
I think Michigan's going more and more blue.
Yes, Michigan, I actually think Biden would win again. Wisconsin, he would not. And Arizona would definitely vote for Ron DeSantis.
Okay.
I think.
Maybe, but again, there's a lot of between times between now and then.
Yeah. So
we shall see, and there's a lot of stuff, but I think Ron DeSantis is Mike Dukakis Redux.
I don't think that. I think our nightmare scenario is Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump make a deal that includes Trump's pardon, probably, but that Donald Trump is going to be able to say, I tried, I really wanted to, but the corruption was just too great. This is actually what he's been soft trying this excuse with other people who have been leaving. This is what he said with his lawyers. All the persecution and everything, I can't blame them. They had to we're no longer going with those lawyers anymore. It's too much, and who's surprised? That type of.
I think I'd be shocked if any of the motherfuckers that are running. And can I say that word?
I have not yet heard a word I can't.
Okay.
Which word?
Because I've heard you say that word. No, I don't want to. I don't want to rain your parade or anything.
I'm not even aware that you swore. What did you say?
Motherfucker.
Oh, motherfuckers is fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Cool. Well, as long as we're down with that, I would be very, very shocked if any one of these people that's in the mix on the Republican side would not say they were going to pardon Donald Trump. I'd be absolutely shocked.
I think every single one of them would pardon Donald Trump.
Every single one of them are gonna throw the United States of America under the bus.
Yeah.
Our national security and everything else.
Mike Pence yesterday said he will still support whoever the Republican nominee is, including Donald Trump.
They're all going to do that.
After, like, with the same oxygen still in his lungs of saying that anybody who asks you to put the Constitution over them should never be president again, which he was talking about Trump at that point. Right. So he said he should never be president again because he wanted me to pick the Constitution, him over the Constitution, and almost the same breath, I'll endorse him as if he's the nominee in 2024.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think all of them would both pardon him and stand behind him. And well, Christie might third party if Trump got the nomination, not run as a third party, but pick somebody and say, I'm not voting for him. What's that?
No, that's my fondest hope is that somebody runs third party and splinters the already minority status of the Republican Party. And
but remember, that might happen to us too. That could happen to when I say us, it could happen to
which is why
the Biden vote
is important right now because we don't have a choice. Right now, we honestly don't have.
I wish Cornel West would run.
You're absolutely right.
As a Democrat.
Right. RFK Jr. is
right.
He's the latter day. I don't know. Pick your person. Who was the woman who ran on the Green Party ticket?
Oh, not Marianne Williamson. City Councilwoman Jo Jorgensen. No, not Jo Jorgensen. That was a Libertarian.
No.
City Councilwoman. Wasn't her last name? Was it the last name also Green? She had been a City Councilwoman before, and as a joke, when referring to her politically, I remember people would say, City Councilwoman. I can't remember her name either. The one who thought Wi-Fi might be causing kids cancer.
Yeah.
But
anyway, I mean, you've got RFK. He's the
wasn't Jill Green, right?
No label. He's the no labels guy, and he's got all sorts of problems, but he's got the Kennedy name, which is okay. You've got name recognition and all that stuff. And of course, he's got Jack Dorsey endorsing him. He's got fucking Elon Musk saying, "Well, yeah,
he's an anti-vaxxer nut job, though."
Yeah, but anyway, I think DeSantis he's definitely number two. Well, they're all number two, but he's definitely the next guy in there. But this is shaping up to be exactly what Trump wants. He wants the 7 doors.
I think you probably think I'm extrapolating too much from his performance in Florida, but I will say I think you're certainly extrapolating too little from his performance in Florida as too insignificant.
And probably we're both wrong.
Yeah, usually it's somewhere in the middle. I'm always right. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, no, no. It's okay. You and I are both.
It was Jill Stein.
You and I are both introverts.
I got
Jill Stein.
Jill Stein was the name. I was like, I asked a minute ago if it was Jill Green, and I was like, I don't think Jill Green is a person, but it was Jill Stein of the Green Party. City Councilwoman Jill Stein ran for president.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there because
For sure.
because I wanted to. That's
Cool.
why. And by the way, go fuck yourself.
Word. Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye. Not everybody over here will get the go fuck yourself thing if they only follow me on this channel. It's not an insult. Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at it was Jill Stein in 2016? And I remember I had a friend who was a Bernie or die bro. And then Bernie endorsed. So he was one of those friends who would always like talk down to you about because you didn't line up with him. And I was pro Bernie, by the way, in 2016 also, until he lost the nomination. And then I went, fuck, well, this is annoying, but we got to do what we got to do. And he acted like this super enlightened political mind. And then the moment Bernie endorsed Hillary, he was like, I hate him. I've always hated him. Pretended like he always did. And I ended up watching the election results, the beginning of the election results with a friend, his roommate actually. And I left a note because he had basically cut off our friendship because I wasn't enthusiastic about Jill Stein like him and wasn't into his fucking stupid thing. Anyway, I left him a note that basically just sounded like I was saying like, it's too bad we're not still friends and da-da-da-da-da. And almost sounding like, hey, let's try and build a bridge. And he had voted for Jill Stein. If you read the first letter of each line, it's spelled waste of a vote or wasted vote or something like that. Basically, I was saying you wasted your vote. It was actually meant to be. And the funniest thing, I never corrected him. But his roommate, his name was Hunter, texted me and he's like, so he just thinks you admitted you were wrong and were apologizing. And I was like, good. I hope he keeps the note. I hope he frames the note, puts it up somewhere. I keep catching the light and how this eyebrow almost looks like it disappears here. And I know my eyebrows have been getting lighter over the years and there's actually quite a bit of gray in them now. But like when I turn just right, it looks like I've thinned out my eyebrow, like I've shaved off half of the hairs, whereas this eyebrow seems to look fine. I don't know, weird eyebrow light physics. Hakuseki says, I think it was a senator who ran in the Green Party, Senator Fergal McNurgle in 92. Well, that I think was actually in 92, Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader used to be, 96 and 2000 was apparently Nader, so maybe not. Maybe it was just 96, 2000. And then we got David Cobb, who was a very forgettable person that I have to always look his name up. I do remember Cynthia McKinney, who ran the year of Obama. And then, Jill Stein. And then I've never even heard the name Howie Hawkins, but apparently he was the 2020. I remember Jo Jorgensen running as Libertarian, and Jo Jorgensen's campaign was doing so poorly that she once replied to a tweet of mine about her campaign. That's how bad it was. That's when things are fucking low. Anyway. I don't have high hopes for a living. I will never forgive Mayor Pete for what he did to that song. And if you don't know what I'm saying, you don't know what I mean, just Google later Mayor Pete High Hopes. I will never forgive him. Raven in Costa Rica, you're the last call for the night. Raven, how you doing?
Hey, good evening, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me. How's everything up there in the north?
Just fine. Now, are you Raven 200, 300?
Nope, just
okay.
Raven.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's a person who chats a lot, and they'll super chat a lot, and they get very creative with the way they tell me to go fuck myself. But anyway, go ahead, Raven. What's on your mind?
I have a rhetorical question for you because I do have my opinion formed, but I would like to hear what's your position. What would it take for the United States to break the bipartisan system that has been governing since pretty much 245 years?
War? No, I'm just kidding. I hope it's not war. So look, the thing is the two-party system has at least morphed a lot, and parties have been replaced by other parties. And that's kind of the fucked up thing is it more likely that the two-party system will fall, or is it more likely that a different, maybe the Republican Party gets replaced by the Constitution Party, or the Democrat Party gets replaced by the Labor Party, or something like that. And I don't know the answer to either questions. But to break down, the thing is so many of our laws, so many of our like county drawing laws, or like the things that now people are using for gerrymandering, so many of our voting laws and stuff are built on a two-party system in the ways where it's like it doesn't necessarily have to explicitly say it, but it implicitly reinforces it. And I think it would literally have to take us going, hey guys, we've advanced as a society so much that the old Constitution does not work, and we should go ahead and just redo the whole government and maybe start over. And that is an almost impossible scenario. But I very much doubt America will get rid of a two-party system in my lifetime, generally.
Actually, it's very interesting, and I appreciate what you just told me. I don't know how familiar are you with American politics outside the United States, meaning
Depends
Central
on the place.
America, South America, and the Caribbean. Those three major sections of America. And the reason I told you it was a rhetorical question is because I do have my perspective very well set in why that happens in the United States. And it has to do with three major points: a historical one, a self-delusion one internally in the United States, and also a fear to evolve the democracy or the republic in the United States. If we see the comparison between Latin America and United States, Latin America has broken bipartisan systems in the last 30, 40, 50 years. However, you have the two routes that has happened. One, a multi-party system that has developed after the breakage of the bipartisan systems. Example in that Costa Rica recently in the last, maybe 7, 8 years, 9 years ago. That was when it was broken for the first time after a 40-year rule of bipartisan system. Or you have the situation in Venezuela, which exited a bipartisan system with the Chavez situation in 99. And then from 99 to today, you've had the uniparty system of the Chavistas, or the MVR, which means Movimiento Quinta República. So just to make it very simple, because I do tend to go long explanations, but I'm trying to improve on that. The problem I see is that the United States has allowed itself to be eaten by its own self-delusion in regards of what type of country they are. And they have not owned up to their own mistakes as other countries have.
What mistakes? Just kidding.
Yeah, what mistakes? What am I talking about? But yeah, and in that sense, from the perspective of Latin America and somebody who's worked on the political scenarios of many countries in Latin America, the combination of that self-delusion was Trump. And Trump is the United States what Hugo Chavez was to Venezuela, what Ortega is to Nicaragua, what Fidel Castro was to Cuba, what Pinochet was to Chile, and I can go on. So that culmination of that self-delusion on Donald Trump showed to us how immature the political system in the United States is. That doesn't mean that Latin America thinks it's superior to the United States. It just shows us these guys have been talking for hundreds of years of how great they are, and look, they're just like us. They're fucking things up like us, and they are not having the political maturity of saying, "Oh boy, we fucked it up."
Sure. So a few things. One, there's a lot of people who don't think we fucked it up yet. There's still people who think Donald Trump was the greatest president, and they think ridiculous, stupid things about his presidency. So that's going to be the first hard part of getting an admission of fucking up. I don't think, in the same way that already nobody really defends Nixon anymore with a few fringe cases, that you have to worry about long-term people. I think history is going to look pretty shitty on Donald Trump, and it's going to look bad on America for embracing Trump. And there'll be lots of explanations for why it happened, and that won't just include that people are fucking stupid and they want to hate people and they fall for scams and they are dicks. So that's as far as there is still a reason why I'm not abandoning America, because America's still worth fighting for and stuff. Because while I agree that there's definitely an immaturity of people, there's an immaturity of certain systems and stuff, there's still some stuff about it that is rather special. And just the experiment of a true melting pot of diversity, the ability to eventually have a country that you can't have really any ethnic expectations for sometime in the probably distant future, but is a tremendous experience, and it's a tremendous experiment, and that experiment is in humanity and has beautiful potential. There's also a system that's supposed to be in place where when you make a mistake like Trump, you then correct the mistake, and there's supposed to be checks and balances in place. But we've fundamentally seen that the way those things have been advanced over the last several decades, especially with Republicans recognizing that their actual popularity, the number of people who actually call themselves Republicans, is going down. So they were setting laws to extend their ability to have power even beyond the times they actually have majority support. That entire system is entirely fucked up, and the rest of the point that I was going to make I don't remember because my brain sucks.
Can I ask you something real quickly?
Go ahead.
What is America? How do you define the term America?
See, this is a question I had asked. This is something that came up with Shannon once, because I teased her that she's American too, because she lives in Canada, which is on the North American continent. Colloquially, at least between Canada and the United States, Canadians refer to being below in the 50 being American. And I've noticed that that's true, I think, of most people from most places. It's America shorthand usually just means the United States of America. Personally, I think it's myopic. I think that if we could actually convince most people that everyone from northern Canada to the I was going to say the tip of Panama, but that's only ending central. What's the big long one? Why am I what is which country is the southernmost tip of South America?
Argentina, Tierra del Fuego.
Okay, so to the tip of Argentina, to the upper tip of Canada, if we could convince everybody they're all Americans, I think that would be a tremendous social advance forward. But I think that's the point you were going to make, that I'm referring to America as the United States when everyone is.
I'm going to make a very particular punch on that one. The term American, or the name American, as everybody should know by simple high school education, was applied to this area after 12 years after the arrival of Christopher Columbus. It was supposedly named after Americo Vespucci. That being said, the name America represents something very interesting. From 1176 or 1776, if you use a Gregorian calendar, I use Halcyon calendar. But from 1176 to up to today, America has signified one simple thing, being that we were the ones to break the colonial systems that were in place for 400 or 500 years, starting with the United States, with the continuing of Haiti, Mexico, 5 countries in Central America, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, etc. So you saw from 1176 or 1776 up till mid-1800s, within the first 40 years, from the moment the United States became independent, an explosion of independent movement. which then created and placed into effectiveness what today we know as constitutional republics. The United States is not the only federal system in this continent, in the Western Hemisphere.
Sure.
Mexico,
I don't think anyone was making that
Colombia.
case.
Exactly. But I just want there.
By the way, I looked it up, and actually, the southernmost part of Chile is further south than the southernmost part of Argentina.
That would be you're right. We normally say Tierra del Fuego, but yeah, there's a southern tip point in Chile. I forgot the name right now.
Is it either Isla Navarino or Isla Hermete or? Well, these are islands.
Yeah, they're the southernmost tip point. But continental-wise, one could argue that it's Tierra del Fuego, but that's another point.
Isla Hornos. That's just a funny name.
Isla Hornos.
Hornos. It's spelled Hornos, and that's the only reason I brought it up.
You know what Hornos means? Isla Hornos?
I feel like if you tell me, it's going to ruin what I'm pretending it means.
What do you pretend it means?
What do I pretend Hornos means? On my end, Hornos it's spelled very similar to hornies. So that's the direction I was taking it. Anyway, it's not important.
You're not that far away. Just two things. The word hornos, the H is silent.
Yes, I know that's generally true in Spanish.
Hornos.
Yeah.
It means, just so everybody knows, it means Stove Island.
Stove Island.
Yeah.
You said I'm not far off. That's nothing close to Horny Island, but whatever. And it looks
hot anyway.
It looks like there's a mountain, maybe Punto Más al Sur de Chile, that is the southernmost point on land of Chile. It looks like.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyhow, point being made in this sense, from apart from the geographical necessity,
sure,
is that after the process of that independence era, between 11776 or 1776 up till mid 1100s or 1850s, 60s, when the majority of countries had become independent, because the last country that became independent was 1974, Suriname. But that's a different story. Anyhow, we created the Organization of American States, or the OAS, by 11884 or 1884. So it's been 200 years where we have had the recognition that America is not just the United States, it's all of us. Canada down to Argentina and Chile and the Caribbean.
Yeah, I think it would be very useful if that. I remember they soft attempted. I was going to school in Florida or Louisiana, but we would watch. I think it was Florida. We would watch these videos in homeroom every day, and it's like, here's like the type of news kids need to hear, and they'd always play this "I am an American," but they would show people from all over the place, and so there was a lot of soy americano, also people saying it in Spanish, and it was sort of a feel good kind of thing that was being attempted. It just never really caught on. But anyway, back to the sort of original point, which I think I've completely lost. So I'll give it to you to bring us back to.
But let me bring it back real quickly. The point being here is that we were the continent that we created this idea of constitutional republics. And for the past between 200 and 250 years, we were the ones to disseminate to the world, hey, listen, we can break with colonialism, we can kick the ass of the European monarchies, and we can become free. And that has been the norm for the past 200 years. Everybody wanted to become that. However, not everybody has been successful. That being said, the example of the United States and the situation that is happening to the United States is clearly showing to us that the United States has not evolved to that point where many of our countries have done so in many different ways, positively, negatively, and everything in between. Because the idea of this idea of the great country of the United States, the great empire, the best in the world, look at us, yada, 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 has diluted the political notion of what a country can do. And the matter of fact is that the more that we see that happening in Latin America, the more we're saying, Bolivar was right. United States seems destined by Providence to plague America with misery in the name of liberty.
Sure. So what's that? Just to bring this to an actual like a sort of direction instead of sort of history lesson deal. What's your solution? What are you calling to advocate for? Because I mean, you're not. It's not like I'm doing a lot of pro-America content. I'm in America for reasons, and I will stay in America because I think it's worth fighting for. But I'm not sitting here going like it's the greatest country that's ever potentially existed. I think that there's a lot of reasons to believe in it as a concept and to be excited for the future, even as you recognize its horrific past. But yeah, I don't know where this is going.
The main thing I would like to advocate for this, and thank you for asking, is I would want to see United States and a lot of its people waking up to realizing that romanticizing the era of independence and not recognizing the necessary changes in constitutional and in the political arena that your country has, it's only going to put you in the risk of ending up like what happened in Venezuela. And the brotherhood and the sisterhood we have with the United States, even though we can criticize a whole bunch of them in the last 200 years, is that we need the United States to evolve. And crossing our fingers that they don't evolve into a uniparty type of situation.
I mean, I think everybody here who isn't a cishet white male will agree that there's a desperate need to evolve for both long-term and short-term safety of many people. But yeah, good enough note. Cool. Anything else before I let you go?
No, I appreciate you having me on the show, and hopefully another time we can have a more profound conversation in regards to the historical context, which takes a long time. But I appreciate you having me here and giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Cool. Thanks, Raven.
Pura vida. Se me cuida. Se me la cuida.
You might have just said terrible things about my mother, but the joke's on you. I'm not close with my mother. See you.
Se me la cuida means you take care of it.
Thanks, Raven.
You take care. All right.
I'm going to poll the chat. I want to see what y'all think between if it came down to Biden versus DeSantis. Who do you all think would win? Who do you think would win? So far it's 50-50. That's the last call we'll probably take. If we'll probably go here in a minute. If super chats start coming in, obviously I'll stick around to read some super chats off to you. But otherwise, can't say I feel terribly bad if we ended after nearly 4 hours. Let me clear the overlay there. One. And a reminder, if you're taking the poll in the chat, that the chat poll is not who should win. The poll is who would win if it was Biden versus DeSantis. And maybe everybody who voted so far also knew that, but I would say the results made me suspect not. It's not who would you vote for. It's who will the country make the president. Putting so much emphasis on the H. I don't know what you're talking about. Which word was it? Who would win? I don't know. I just do stuff like that. Because I also, it's sort of a way to practice my impression of Stewie Griffin. The sort of cool whip. Oh yes, pie tastes better with cool whip. Whip. Oh, now you're just being cruel. I need to get back to practicing. I used to have it damn near close to perfection, but now it's not as good as it used to be. Needs to be protected more. No, I don't think it was Hornos. I think that was just when I was trying to say horny. I think I said it Ornos the first time. Didn't roll my R though. Ornos. Ornos. Say it quietly. I liked when he said, somebody pointed out in chat when there's like, you're close, but it means something completely different. I thought that was very funny. All right, well, cool. I think 78% of you, though it's only of 37 people, are fucking nuts. No, not nuts. I think it's fine that some of you think that Biden would win, but the idea that Biden would beat DeSantis right now, when, again, they are going to run mostly on, they're going to take their normal Republican thing and then just run on how many people just sort of hate trans people or don't understand trans people, so they support anti-trans stuff, or don't understand what words actually mean. And so when we're talking about gender-affirming care for minors, we're not talking about the types of procedures that the Republicans want you to think. I just think that I don't know what. Again, I could understand this audience saying they would prefer Biden over DeSantis, but that Biden will defeat DeSantis. I'm not sure Biden will defeat old age by the election. Shitty as that sounds. But I digress. Human history. If party's better with cool whip. Whip. All right, I think we're done because no one super chatted. Well, thanks for coming and hanging out. Thanks. Oh, Dylan. Look, Dylan says, I think my generation would help Biden win if it came down to it. Biden will be against somebody. It will come down to it. I think your generation voted higher than previous generations did. Though people like to shit on me, like when I point out, you need to vote more. That's still true. And then they'll be like, we voted more than you. Not me specifically. I started voting the moment I could vote. So you're coming after the wrong dickhole. But yes, my generation should have voted more. And Gen Z currently outvotes Gen Y or millennials for their age at their time. But Gen Y votes more than Gen Z does on the day. But at that age, they voted less. I don't think Gen Z will vote more if it isn't Trump. I think Trump was specifically a thing that was easy to rally around. I think even just hatred, like sensationalizing anger towards a candidate, will be broadly less easy against DeSantis, even though, again, in my opinion, he's worse. He's worse on policy. Is he worse for democracy? That's debatable, because I don't know that he would pull the same type of trying to convince his vice president to literally overturn the Constitution, exploring potentially declaring martial law and all the fucking shit we know he was doing now. I don't know whether or not he would make a direct play to be a dictator, but as far as his policy positions just as a Republican president, I would say certainly worse. But that's just who I am this week. Isn't it messed up how I'm just trying to be him? I don't really have an outro, so you can all just fade to black. Bye.